Hello and welcome back to the Awakening Philosophy Podcast. My name is Jen and we are in the Socrates and Jesus book, the book that bangs so hard it will give your great-grandchildren CTE. This book is amazing and we are having a fun time reading it. And reading it in a new kind of a way. As we're going through, we're learning a new way of reading, which involves puzzle solving. Not only learning how to solve puzzles, how to look for puzzles, how to use analogy to solve the puzzles, but also how to read without interpretation. One of the big points of the book is it's taken us 2,500 years to actually listen to Socrates. Why is that? If there is a meaning of life that's understandable, that we can do, that we can practice, that we can understand and verify in our own direct experience, that can affect us in a positive way in this lifetime and after we die, both in what we get to experience on death and also in our reincarnation. And we're able to, know all these things, what we call the logos. All of those things are apprehendable because of the intelligibility of reality. We call that the logos. And if Socrates was telling us all about it for so long, why did it take us so long to listen? And of course, fundamental to that is, let me just adjust my audio so I'm not too loud, is belief. It's taken us that long to have philosophers who were not compelled to project their belief into what was being said and written, which is the issue. Human beings don't see what's there to be seen. We project our beliefs onto the world. That's the cause of our problems. But fortunately, we have had philosophers who have gone through the process of discovering and removing their beliefs, which is, of course, philosophical midwifery. It's the dialectic, which is the activity of the logos, applied to surfacing our problems. That's philosophical midwifery. And of course, you get help and guidance in that activity through your dreams. And equally so, you only unpack the meaning of your dreams through dream analysis, which is the application of the dialectic to it. So it's dialectics all the way down, baby. So to read without interpreting. And the cause of human problems being the projection of our own false beliefs onto the world and relating to that instead. Now, one specific false belief that is a root cause and condition for human suffering is the idea of punishment. We have been doing a dialectic in the text on why that can't be a thing. What is punishment? Is it good or bad? Therefore, what should we do instead? So fundamentally, the dialectic pivots around the idea: are problems caused by mistakes or evil? Or rather, and are those mistakes a lack of understanding? Specifically, understanding of the specific principle. There's the logos again, the intelligible principles of reality. Either a lack of understanding of the principle or a lack of being able to apply it appropriately to the situation. If so, does teaching require understanding the whole of the subject and recognizing the part that deviates so you can help the student see equally so the whole and part, so they can correct the part that's not in harmony with the whole? What is the principle that they're not seeing or applying properly? Therefore, are problems solved through wisdom, which is the word used in the text, which gives us a little bit of a clue about what wisdom is. What is wisdom? And what's it got to do with seeing the whole and the part and being able to function through it to benefit those who are making mistakes? That's another question we have on the table. What the fuck is wisdom? We want to be wise. So, are all problems solved with wisdom? If so, well, okay, to make that argument, you have to say, okay, or are there some problems that just can't? Are there some ignorances more powerful than wisdom? Are there certain things that you just can't correct by having wisdom and applying it? There's some lack of wisdom, lack of seeing the parts in whole that you can't fix with seeing the parts in the whole. You just need to punish. Whether it be cosmically with the idea of hell, and psychologically with torturing people with the idea that if you make a mistake, you're going to be burned in a lake of fire. Hell, the idea of sin, you made a mistake not because you lack wisdom, but because you're a bad person and you should feel bad. And punishment in this life, of course, all the various different kinds. Reconciliation, confession, all of these sacraments you see in religion, and of course in society, with prisons and fines and things like that, where you can't solve a problem with understanding and wisdom, you just have to make human beings suffer. That only works if there are some things that can't be solved with wisdom. This can only work if there is some ignorances that are more powerful than wisdom. But if no ignorance can stand the light of wisdom, then automatically punishment is off the table. Now we can also go further than that and say, well, okay, what happens if you do punishment? And we saw that there's a dialectic that unfolds through that as well. Now, dialectic is steps of reasoning that follow a set series of, stages to an inevitable conclusion. Because it's truth. It's repeatable. Just like if you understand, we've been using geometry, right? If a kid makes a mistake with geometry, do you beat the child and threaten them with eternal damnation? Or, so long as you're an actual teacher who can see the whole in the parts and recognizes that any art, you've got a responsibility to use it to benefit, and it's never belief. You never say, oh, this is the answer, just believe me, bro. It's always to help facilitate the understanding and seeing of the person themselves too, which is why a red flag, if anyone is a grifter or a scammer or a tyrant, they will say, just believe me. Anyone who deals with belief, you can have a red flag that goes up and say, oh, they are a bad person or messing with you or ignorant themselves. I better not listen to them, which is why if someone says, can I give you some advice? You punch them in the nose and then run away. Maybe don't punch them in the nose, but that's the essence. Let me pretend to be a knower by passing on beliefs that you don't benefit from. Advice. Screw advice. How about understanding? How about, being a person? Which of course requires practicing the dialectic. So everything I'm saying now isn't just a belief. It's steps of reason you can see for yourself, and we've all seen for ourselves by reading the book itself. None of this is my own opinion or belief. It's all in the book, which is reading without interpretation. All of the words are from the book. That's important because this is essential for discovering puzzles. For instance, the word wisdom is being used when referred to the teacher who can see the whole and the parts. That's key because we want to know what wisdom is. So that's why it's important to use the right words. The fact that in talking about a teacher who can see the whole of geometry or whole of this equation, recognize the part that the student is missing, and therefore the book uses the word wisdom. Therefore, can ignorance stand the light of wisdom? We are learning more about wisdom as well as the specific idea of punishment. Isn't that neat? So wisdom is some apprehension of the whole and the parts as well. Ooh, interesting. So wisdom can never be belief. It can never be imitation. You either see it or you don't. Interesting. So what? Well, So, well, the fundamental principle as there kind of ignorance that is more powerful than wisdom. But on the other hand, what does punishment do? Again, we want to nail it down in our own understanding, which is repeatable. Just as if you repeat the same steps in solving a geometrical equation, you'll get the same answer. If you follow the same steps in fixing an engine, you'll fix the engine every time. This is a kind of learning. The dialectic is the or the highest expression of that, because everything follows the mind. Everything follows our state of mind and our psyche. Whether we decide to fix our car's engine or not, is based on what we think about the world. Whether we use our mind to create hand grenades and guns and nuclear bombs, or whether we want to use our minds to design systems of harmony through which we can all learn to do philosophical midwifery and philosophy, or follow the logos. That all is based on our state of mind. But the use of learning, or steps and stages of repeatable steps and stages to truth, is most highly applied to our mind. That's what we're doing here right now. So let's apply that to punishment. What does happen? What is punishment? Can you define it? Inflicting suffering by someone who is ignorant themselves of learning? Because demonstration? Because no one who can see the whole and parts of the equation would ever beat a child for not seeing it, or shoot a Palestinian in the face, or buy up all the houses so human beings have to starve and freeze to death on the street, take away healthcare, etc. Inflict punishment, concentration camps. Nope, not if you see the whole and a part. So it's a functioning of someone who is ignorant but pretending to be a knower. What does it cause? A state of suffering within the soul. What's the effect of that demonstration or functioning or effect? No freedom. No freedom. What happens without the freedom? You do not learn to address or discover the root cause of the mistake. Therefore, conclusion, no learning. You're stuck in the problem still. Doesn't help anything, only hurts people. But you can do another dialectic of what is learned. Avoid being caught. That's all you learn with punishment. Avoid being caught. Does it help anyone? So, dialectics on what punishment is, how it functions. Now, we've also got a dialectic in our back pocket about why hell can't exist. If that follows for the physical world, and, well, if we can see those principles in the physical world, we're aware of those principles, so therefore those principles can't apply cosmically. Because we've already seen it. We've seen it in the physical world. We've seen it in one example with geometry. We apply it to many examples. It also applies with learning how to ride a bike. Learning how to do anything. Well, learning how to ride a bike is another example. Or fix an engine. Therefore, to a principle. So one to many to a principle. And then finally you apply it to the specific. Therefore, can it be a principle cosmically? In other words, can hell exist? Now, we've also got another dialectic about hell being impossible metaphysically, because this book is helping us understand the higher dimensions of reality. What are the eternal dimensions? And the one expression used to talk about the brilliant light of being, or the realm of being, is the idea of the good. Can the good coexist with evil? And beyond that, the good self. Can the good self coexist with evil? Of course not. So, metaphysically also, there's no such thing as hell. So, dialectics on punishment. And that's what we're doing now. We are watching this dialectic play out between two people. So while we can understand it and remember it and repeat it to ourselves and function through our dialectic, our understanding, our seeing, we also can benefit others by taking others people through these steps. Love and logos. And we're seeing that in the text. We're seeing Socrates talk with Jesus, following the steps to a conclusion to see that punishment is bad and isn't a cosmic principle, which also dissolves other terrible, harmful ideas that are the cause or root conditions and causes for human suffering and abuse, sin, hell, come along with punishment. Every variation of that. Politically, you might say the word woke. We can murder that person or abuse that person or invade that person's town because they're woke or because they're Antifa. Just buzzwords that are used to dog whistle the idea of evil or sin. We have to bum the Palestinians and take their land because they're the wrong religion. They're heathens. They're goyim, or whatever the Jewish word is for not in our in-group. There's no in-group for understanding. Everyone can play. Everyone benefits. Because understanding is of principles. So there you go. Once again, belief causes problems, understanding solves them. It's just that simple. And fun. So, that's what we've been doing. Understanding the dialectic, applying it to the most meaningful things. Rather, in particular, solving problems through wisdom. Oh, and by the way, if the fundamental premise of punishment is dissolved, which is that there are some ignorances you just can't solve with wisdom, well, there goes punishment. But also, that means that if someone is making a mistake, they lack wisdom. They lack a good thing that everyone wants. Do you punish someone for not having an ice cream? No. You commiserate their lack of ice cream. Actually, we've got a sound drop about ice cream.
The primary purpose of peanuts is not to murder, it's to eat for sus. The more holes the making ice creams they're secretly turned on. That one's perfect. Do a bless I'm cute. That one's perfect and exactly the case.
Okay. I'm not going to be able to find a sound drop in particular from my random board. There's one of Emma saying that ice cream is like courageous to make or something. Emma from the Majority Report. Check them out on YouTube. Today is Thursday. That's normally there's a fun half of the Majority Report that I call Majority Report All Stars, and that's on Thursdays. Check them out. Matt, Brandon, and Emma, the 4 Ninja Turtles of understanding. Anyway, that's Emma on the soundboard. Right. So, would you punish someone for not having an ice cream? No. Would you punish someone for having a lack of wisdom? No. So, one of a set. Now we've got a set of different dialectics, all of which serve the same function to show that punishment is terrible and bad and shouldn't be done, or unjust. So, we are addressing injustice through understanding. But also what we've been doing is saying, hey, this thing that allows us to solve problems and address and remove injustice is a kind of learning. And the removal of injustice is a kind of justice. And that same dialectic that we can use to remove injustice, we can use to understand wisdom, as we've been doing, and share that. So it's also to reach justice. Remove injustice, reach justice. So this one activity of the dialectic can do the two things that human beings are here to do. Remove the bad and reach the good. Remove problems, reach excellence. And of course, we've been collecting a large list of 2 words to describe those functions. Escape your fate, reach your destiny, which is the same as saying remove your problems and reach your highest purpose and cause. Highest goal. Remove pseudo-excellence as a motivating factor for your soul and reach excellence. Unzombify yourself. Is there justice even when the bad people thinks they are making the right thing? That's the issue. So people are convinced or have an ignorance about what's good and right. So how do we correct that injustice? Punishing them, or taking them through the stages of the dialectic to see the parts and the whole, or see what specific principle they're not either seeing themselves or applying, so they can harmonize themselves with the good. That's the issue. And you're right, people have beliefs about what's good, and so they're doing their best to do good. That's like many people killing Palestinians. They've been taught that, hey, these people are evil, and you can't solve problems of evil with understanding. So the more Palestinians you shoot, the better you are being for the world. That kind of crap. Right, so that is injustice. But the fact that we seek the good means that there is a drive to justice within our soul. We want to do good. Even doing bad things people do because they think it's good. That's the issue. Therefore, they have ignorance or a lack of wisdom, which means justice is addressing that injustice and ignorance through understanding. So, what are we here to do? Understanding. What's that called? Dianoia is the word for that in the Greek. So instead of saying we're all here to be philosophers, philos, sophia, love of wisdom, we can have an even better subject, philodianoia, love of understanding. And that's the dialectic. It's the same structure of reasoned reflection to the same conclusion, because it's true, that you can repeat to yourself, to your loved ones, to anyone. Therefore, you could even make laws that follow the dialectic, bringing about justice in society and removing injustice in society. You could set up spiritual traditions. That's what we're doing here. That's the logos, the same thing. It's always the logos. To bring about the justice and harmony within the soul. So therefore, whether it's the individual or whether it's society, it's always the removal of ignorant beliefs through the application of understanding. Did I miss the music stream? You didn't. I had to have I was going to do a music stream last night, but I ran out of time. And I was, I was developing my playlist of songs, so there was no music stream. Depending on what time I get up, so it's kind of haphazard. So I will try and stream before my philosophy streams, and I'll try and stream after as well. So I'll let you know when my next one is, and hopefully it will be in maybe 5 hours time. Yeah. I'll have to find a routine, because sometimes I play out as well. So I'll post when I'm doing the music stream on the Discord. But yeah, hopefully I'll fall into a routine so you can catch me playing. We can talk and listen to lovely songs. So, if it's the same activity that removes injustice and reaches justice, then it's a single function that we can ourselves do, which is of course a practice. We have to learn it. We have to practice it, which means we can carry it with us, because it's non-physical. We can carry it with us after we die or when we separate from the body. It's a learning and nurture, but it's also therefore it's a single function that we can focus our soul around, that can unify our mind or psyche, because our psyche or mind can be distracted by many different things, pulling us in many different directions. Squirrel brain. Or when we realize there's just one primary function we're here to do as human beings, the dialectic, which is the following of the logos, which manifests as either the parts through understanding or apprehension of the whole as the experience of being, or the brilliant light of being, or the idea of the good, or eternity, or a higher dimension. Lots of ways of talking about seeing everything all at once. Wisdom, when you have both together so far, parts and the whole, which fits what we were saying about. See, wisdom we saw earlier in the text was referred to having both knowledge, which is the brilliant light of being, or seeing everything as a whole, and understanding together. Many people have had that experience without understanding, which can have terrible effects, especially in the story of Jesus that we see in Mark, where Jesus has that brilliant light of being experience and then becomes more entrenched in his beliefs, which causes the playing out of, well, that story to his tragic end. There is no resurrection story in Mark. That was added hundreds of years later. So it ends with a tragic end. Now, following the structure of a Greek tragedy up until the end. Because in a Greek tragedy, the hero has a blind spot that he fails to recognize and address that causes his tragic demise. But in the end, he realizes his problem was caused by his own way of being. In the story of Mark, Jesus doesn't have that revelation at the end. He says, God has forsaken me. So, while following all of the steps of the tragic hero except one, making him a pathetic hero. That's the name for the drama of Jesus in the story of Mark. Luke and Matthew copy Mark. And then the fourth accepted or published gospel is John. And John spent his time defending Paul. So most modern Christians don't follow anything that Jesus says. They say they follow Paul. Paul was the guy who flipped everything on its head. Hey, instead of understanding the parables through analogy, which we're learning to do here, to get a state of mind that Jesus calls the heaven, and reaching a state of self that he calls the kingdom of God, which you can also see in the Gnostic Gospels that we discovered in Egypt in the 60s, the ones buried by the church. Instead of that, understanding for mind and self, just believe me, bro, says Paul, and all of the stuff about Jesus being the only Son of God, and you have to believe, and you should end the world, and that will end demons, and all that rapture stuff, and the system of churches and all that stuff. That's all Paul. So modern Christians are not following Jesus at all. They're doing the opposite. They are Pauline Jews by definition. Just as modern philosophers aren't doing philosophy, they are Aristotelian. Because what we are learning how to do is the same thing. Move from belief-based cognition to understanding as a way of being that has one skill, that's the dialectic, has two primary functions, removing what's false and developing excellence in the good, and the many ways of talking about that, removing injustice and perfecting justice, removing pseudo-excellence, our false idea of excellence that motivates us, mastering excellence, to move from understanding to knowing, which is those parts that we were learning to master through the dialectic, the parts of reason, the logos. Apprehending the logos all at once is knowing. And of course, the two together we just said is wisdom. And then moving beyond that, understanding even being, to realize that must have a cause, or there must be some self experiencing it to the self. giving us a hierarchical system of personal development that all human beings, all living things go through. Well, belief is number 4, because you can leave belief and not pick up understanding. So the modern Democrats who say, oh, I don't know, everything is just all opinion, bro. There is no truth. There is no understanding. It's just all personal opinions. Who's to say what's right and wrong? Let's not fight back against fascism, says the modern Democrats. That's a massive difference. Belief, number 4. Understanding, number 3. That's the good one. Knowledge is number 2. The two together seems to be wisdom. We're still carrying that as a question as we read. Is that what wisdom is? And of course, the self. Now, seeing as it's one activity that can unify our sometimes diverse or scattered thoughts or mind, and it's our purpose, even though, well, it has 2 primary functions, but it's one activity, means it's a kind of learning and nurture that can unify your psyche, which means it's a kind of, and it's true, and it reaches your higher goals. Therefore, it's the activity or learning that can bring about a different state of mind. It's not like Aristotelian education or belief-based education, where it's through repetition. You can end up seeing through your understanding and functioning in a just way, bringing about an internal state of justice that we can call, well, I call it the ideal of the samurai. Basketball players call it being in the zone. But a state where you can think instantaneously, see through your seeing, see through your understanding, and act most appropriately for the circumstances without having to think or plan ahead, with the full force of your being in the zone, inner justice. That's on the table too. So, a lot of fantastic things on the table so far. Let's check in with Chatty Chat. I always look at real justice as conviction, not condemnation. Especially if people use self-justified beliefs for vindication against others. Right, so we can say that if beliefs are the cause of human problems and suffering, then to feel justified in your beliefs, which of course kings do, and clergy do, and parents do when they introduce the pathologos, we could say that would be the height of injustice. To cosplay as wise while actually just imitating belief while pretending to be justified. But in the chat, but real authentic justice is showing people where they are being unhealthy, but also regulating them to be healthy. Which is pointing out how they've been being self-destructive, but giving them the light and guidance on how to handle and come to terms on the reasons behind why they're being the way they are. Exactly. And the formal name for that sequence of questions that guide the self-reflection of the person, that's the dialectic. The sequence and structure of those questions that allow them to see either where they're missing the mark or to help develop further insight. That's why Socrates called it philosophical midwifery. You can give birth to sick babies or sick ideas, false beliefs, problems, or you can give birth to beautiful works that can last in humanity for 1,000 years and rival even the works of Homer and Hesiod, to quote the book. Yeah, dialectic. Without mercy, there is only tyranny. Right, I don't know what mercy means. Kindness, understanding, reason. However, since most people hold on to beliefs about their ego and who they are as people, they become easily offended and influenced by certain perceptions of reality. Yeah, that's the thing as well. So, even though all human problems are caused by false beliefs, in particular the ones that are from which you derive your image of yourself, which people commonly call ego, even though it's the cause of your problems, and you're specifically born here to address and remove that false image. If you don't, you will spend your life becoming more entrenched in that image, which will have negative effects in this life and in your reincarnation. Even though that's the case, human beings are at a stage of development where they're fiercely, savagely, barbarically loyal to their image and loyal to their clan beliefs. So they fight against the best people who can help them. And you're right, as a consequence, those who know what buttons to push, so Trump can hold up a Bible and say, hey, I'm going to kill everyone and steal everything because I'm a sadistic, tyrannical con man. But a Bible, look, Bible. So yeah, you can be manipulated by people who manipulate your beliefs. So not only are you causing suffering, you are going to be a slave to those who manipulate you. Forgiveness, understanding, and grace. So forgiveness is an interesting word because forgiveness is within the realm of sin or punishment. I forgive you for making a mistake. What the fuck does that mean? Get out of here. No, you're a bad person, and I get to say you're a bad person. But I'm okay with you being a bad person. I forgive you. Does forgiveness help people learn? Does forgiveness reflect on the cause of the mistake? Or does it imply that you're bad and you're lesser, so the person giving the forgiveness talks down in a patronizing way that says, oh, I'm okay with you being bad? Here's a good example. If someone came to you and said, you're a woman, I forgive you for being a woman, would you feel happy, or would you feel like punching that guy in the face? It implies wrongness, it implies evil, it implies sin. So save forgiveness for church. But I know the spirit behind what you're saying, because understanding and compassion or grace for making mistakes and letting them learn. Right. So learning is what you're talking about, which is, of course, abandoned in the idea of reconciliation or forgiveness and that belief-based stuff, which doesn't help anyone. Never. Like, the only people I hear talking about forgiveness are preachers. No person who's ever listened to the homily or the service or whatever has ever been happy with forgiveness. My next door neighbor keeps stealing my newspaper. Just forgive him. What the fuck? No. I want my newspaper. If I forgive him, I'm never going to get my newspaper back. And I'm still pissed. Forgiveness is just, give up your mind. But I can see that you mean understanding and compassion. Yeah. But that's the key. So we are purifying our language. Because it's these words, it's our words that we can see. So the material for dialectic is our words, because words reflect our psyche or mind, and it's the mind that we function through. So anyone who tries to, like a politician that tries to silence the conversation, or someone that says, oh, we don't have time to ask these questions, or filibustering, or going, all of the debate techniques. Don't listen to Trump's words when he says he's going to kill people. No, don't, just ignore words. Words are the tool. Words are the logos. The dialectic is a series of questions that follows language, which is why we use the words in the text. We don't want to introduce our own words. That's interpretation. Likewise, when we are midwifing someone else, either to remove their false beliefs and problems or help develop their insight and learning, we use their words. Or their words to surface their problem, but the text's words to reach insight and enlightenment. Thanks for forgiving me for being a woman. Right. See? It sucks. Same thing when people say, can I pray for you? No, get out of here. Patronizing. Because it's in the realm of belief. Beliefs are the cause of problem. And the only appeal of beliefs is if you are ignorant, you can pretend to be wise. You don't have to show a knowledge of the whole. You don't have to show an understanding of the parts. You don't have to show a charm in being able to present your knowledge and understanding in an affable way that people can listen to and can benefit from. No, you can just cross your arms and repeat the same bullshit you heard from your parents, or from your preacher, or from your imam, or from your rabbi, or from Fox News, or from some fascist, and say, I reckon you should do this. Belief. And because it's that understanding of the parts and apprehension of the whole, presented step by step through the dialectic, that actually helps people. If you don't have that, you can't help. You can only do harm. That's why believers take causing harm as their ideal or archetype. That's why all of the billionaires and trillionaires out there who have siphoned all their wealth from everyone else, which is, by the way, not theirs. Money belongs to everyone. It's like water. We all need it to drink and live. They could solve world hunger. They could solve homelessness. They don't. They use their power to surveil people more, to take away more rights, to remove Meals on Wheels, to remove healthcare, to bomb more people, set up more prisons, enslave more people, spread more ignorance. In other words, why is cruelty the point for believers? And of course the answer is simple, because belief doesn't have a feeling, and it doesn't have knowledge, and it doesn't have benefit. So believers, or I always think of like kids who are like in high school or whatever, and they feel they have no impact on the world because they've just been told to believe their teachers and believe their parents and believe. And school doesn't actually teach you to think, doesn't actually teach you about the world, doesn't teach you the things that we need to learn to improve ourselves and fix the world. So they've got no agency, got no money. So when they get drunk, they usually do destructive things. Jackass. Jackass is the epitome of that. Let's break things and break ourselves. Whether it's smashing mailboxes or jumping off a building or whatever. It's a good example of this. Believers, fascists, tyrants, kings and clergy can only break things. And that feeling of influence when you hurt people, believers take for knowledge as a surrogate because they don't actually have knowledge, which has a feeling. It's the greatest feeling. The highest positives are used to describe it. And it can't understand its parts, the two of which are used to benefit others and make things and create things and be creative, think for yourself, help other people. So it takes hurting people and crushing people as a mark of knowing that they become addicted to sadism. Sadism is belief cosplaying as wise, doing the only thing belief can function in doing, hurting people. That's why cruelty is the point for believers. And that's why we need to understand this is true always and forever, because it's not a belief itself, it's understanding. So we can, in the same way, you can follow, there are so many regular people who follow athletes' strengths and weaknesses from high school through college into the NBA or into the NFL. They know what they're good at. Oh, he's good at 3-point shooting, but he's bad at defense. He's weak on his left-hand side, but he's strong on his right-hand side, so he'll always drive right. From high school, regular folks, normies, have a precise encyclopedic knowledge of strengths and weaknesses of people's sporting ability. All we need to do is recognize, you know what's even better than sport? And the ideal of sport being getting into that in a justice state, the flow state, the in the zone state. That's what we really want to see. We want to see excellence. That's why people spend like a year's worth of salary to go to the Super Bowl or go to the NBA Finals. They are going to, oh, you're shopping. Buy me something nice. That they want the finals of the best athletes because they think it's these conditions they'll see excellence. We want to see human excellence. All we got to do is say, hey, well, it's pretty good to be in the zone and sinking 3-pointers, and it's more likely that these athletes are going to pour more of themselves into the finals, and it's the best athletes in the Super Bowl, in the NBA Finals. You know what's even better than that? Excellence of the soul. So having that same encyclopedic, like precise, like obsessive knowledge of strengths and weaknesses of people, but your strengths is the dialectic and the logos. Wisdom. How deep and how often can you experience the brilliant light of being, and how good is your understanding and dialectic of it? And what's weaknesses? Your beliefs. What kind of false beliefs did you grow up with? And what level of philosophical midwifery and dream analysis have you yet to do such that it still has an influence on you? Because that's the two strengths and weaknesses of all human beings. The level of belief that you are still unsuspected false beliefs in particular, but the self that you identify with from your clan, that's the cause of your every human weakness. You can make a religion and say, oh no, I don't just think that, God thinks that. You can set up laws and say, oh, I don't just think that, it's the law. But it's always the same belief and understanding. Logos and pathologos. Such that the people who love logos the most from high school can be nurtured and developed and given scholarships and sent to the best philodianoia teachers. Love of understanding, better than philosophy. Sent to the best midwifery colleges and dream analysis colleges in the land. These are the people who won't want political positions, who won't want to be have positions of authority or whatever. But that's fine. That's why we gave them the scholarship, because we need the best of us. Currently, we have the opposite. We are currently ruled by the absolute worst human beings, the ones who seek power, not because they see it's their responsibility to share the logos with others, even though they'd rather, as Socrates puts it, dwell in the isles of the blessed, be in a state of mind of bliss of knowing the logos eternally. Or to say it's, Socrates quotes this poem, he says, I'd rather be in that real world and be a slave to a landless person than be king of all the dead people who live here. Again, the idea of Hades, or the playing out of the dead, being in earth, in the physical world, appearances. So even though they would rather dwell in a higher dimension of reality, which is more real, than this zombie landscape, people stuck in their pathologos, zombie, NPC, barbaric problems, causing them to be unjust, and to be unjust most strongly to the most just of us. But it's their responsibility because, you know, they're the best at it. No. We don't get those people as our rulers, the best. We have the opposite. People who seek power over the physical world because they're the most ignorant. They seek opportunities to A, escape consequences from their false beliefs so they never have to learn, and B, pretend their own personal beliefs and ignorance are universal. So instead of actually learning the universal principles, the logos and dialectic, they're just pretending their old bullshit opinions and beliefs they got from their childhood are them. My beliefs, says Paul, are God's belief. I'm better than Jesus, says Paul. God appointed me as his apostle. That's modern Christianity. Aristotle, modern education and modern philosophy. Screw the Logos and Socrates. I'm speaking for philosophy now, says Aristotle. Instead of learning the Logos, they cosplay that their pathologos is the Logos. In the same way, we need to say, who was your basketball coach in high school? What school did you go to? Did they have a good program there? Do we ever say that of a person? Where did you learn the Logos from? What books did you master? What dream analysis and philosophical midwifery teachers did you have? What were your strengths and weaknesses? Did you notice when your pathologos came up when being a dialectician? That's the questions we need to ask. Currently we don't, and therefore the people who desire power to hide their pathologos and pretend their pathologos is the Logos are the ones in power. That's why we have this terribly unjust and tyrannical society we're in right now. And we have the acumen, even the most normal normies follow sports in that kind of a way. All we got to do is say, hey, even better excellence is seeing this. Not strengths and weaknesses of 3-pointers, but strengths and weaknesses of the Logos. Kinder eggs okay? Yes, please. Get me a dozen eggs, because that's the right amount of eggs.
The primary purpose of pools is not to murder. It is for enjoyment and cooling off.
Exactly. That's the primary purpose of pools, and the primary purpose of Kinder eggs is to live in my belly. So, a kind of excellence that we could map through the best of human beings through their development, and be on alert for the pathologos as tyrants emerge from various places. There are many Nazi schools. Peter Thiel and Elon Musk went, I think, to Nazi-based schools, so quite explicit in their Nazism and fascism. So we need to be on alert for the strengths and weaknesses of people. But again, it's one activity. What's that title, Ideal Woman? So that's the next thing we're on. So, exactly. What is the ideal woman is a better question. So we've been developing an understanding of the dialectic as a single activity that we can learn, which allows us to address injustice and reach justice. But because it's a single activity that we can nurture within ourselves and end up seeing through, it will affect our state of mind, putting us into that zone state, like a 3-pointer shooter or the ideal samurai. That's what they train for, that state of being, giving us an inner justice. So that we can use that state of inner justice to not shoot the best 3-pointers or do the best samurai slashes, but to do the best dialectics with people. Now, we are developing, therefore, a model of excellence, which brings us to the next part of the book. We have 3 archetypes on the table of heroes. Now, they're not real people. They are metaphorical or personifications or myths representing ideal principles. That's theology. They're not people who take the Bible or take stories literally about the divine. The word in the text is barbarians. There's no man on the sky watching you masturbate in the shower and saying you're going to go to hell for that. That's bullshit. All it is all of these principles of the Logos that we are seeing that apply always through understanding, that can be experienced and recognized in your experience of reality or divine luminosity. That's metaphysics. before the physical world, the principles of the physical world. To talk about them and represent them in stories, that's mythology. That's also theology, same thing. So we have these mythological representations of ideal humans, ideal souls. Those are the heroes. And we've got 3 on the table. We have Achilles. What makes Achilles an ideal that we can look out for and sign to our fantasy draft team? Our NFL and NBA fantasy team, but for the logos. Achilles. We have Hercules. What state of being or state of mind of the soul does Hercules represent? And we have Penelope, the ideal woman. Why is it that the gods celebrated, what was the book? What does it say in the book? The gods celebrated, the gods sing praises not of Achilles or Odysseus in the Odyssey. So, the Iliad talks about Achilles as someone doing something in particular that makes him an ideal standard for humanity. The sequel is the Odyssey, which follows Odysseus, but the hero in the Odyssey isn't Odysseus, it's Penelope, the ideal woman. Why do the gods celebrate Penelope? And of course we have another hero, sometimes called the greatest hero, Hercules. What makes him a great hero? So these are all archetypes or standards of excellence for human souls. So you want to have Hercules as your point guard, you want to have Penelope as your small forward, and you want to have your center as Achilles, if you were having your ideal fantasy draft team. So that's what we're going to do next. So we're doing now. I'm going to keep reading and have those questions on the table. Given everything what we've been saying and concluding now about the meaning of life being the dialectic, being creating a state of inner justice, being able to function in a just way, in 2 functions to remove injustice and help facilitate justice on every level, individually, politically, spiritually, giving us an excellence and a heightened state of mind that also affects positively our reincarnations. So the negative consequences of an unjust life you play out in your reincarnation as you do your positive ones, but that's not justice unless there's a learning that you can do to get the good and avoid the bad. Therefore, necessarily, if there is a just world and if there is reincarnation and justice, or if there's justice in the world, there has to be reincarnation and learning. And it better affect our state of mind positively in this life too. So given everything we've just said about that ideal state of being, inner justice, the meaning of life, and the single activity of the art of the dialectic that can actually benefit people, how does all that help us answer the questions, why is Achilles, Hercules, and Penelope the ideal women? What makes them excellent, given everything we've just said? All of this is in the book, nothing to do with opinions, and nothing to do with specific examples. These are principles that will always be true. Understanding. That's where we are in the text. Let me check in with Chatty Chat. I'm a pretending to be, from man's perspective, virgin. Never been with anyone else except me. Worships me. Looks beautiful. Right. The ideal woman in terms of like incels. Yes, they want a virgin that only worships you and only looks at you, and smart, but not smarter than the man. Does what they want them to do, and cook and clean and do whatever I want them to do. But I need 5 of them. You need the harem. Because when I have intimacy with them, I ruin them. Oh yeah. So that's another thing. Intimate relationships. Don't you want to be your best? Don't you want to be your highest? Don't you want to express your highest ideals? Again, justice and injustice plays out in your fantasies and in your intimacy. Either negatively, if you are trying to facilitate your false beliefs, or injustice, imitation of beauty, imitation of strength, imitation of manliness or womanliness, or, which is most relationships, or when you have love and logos, you can create the conditions in intimacy for your true ideal and excellence. Love and logos. Which can, as we see with Socrates' female teacher Diotima, who initiated Socrates into, spiritual initiation. The levels of perception of beauty and ability to unify or participate in beauty mirrors or goes along with cognitive states of functioning or ways of thinking, bringing you to the ideal of beauty or beauty itself, one of the aspects of pure knowing, experiencing mind all at once as beauty itself, or knowledge. But of course, and the symposium ends with saying, hey, that experience of beauty itself, eternity itself, is just the starting point for true excellence. You have to add logos to that and go beyond it, because there's still a cause and there's still something experiencing even the greatest experience. So the ideal woman also wants them to be pregnant and bear my children. Call me jaded, but there's men like that. Yes, there are lots. That would be the pathologos. Or not specifically the pathologos, but that would be a common false belief used to manipulate society. Oh, there's men like, I'd say most men are like that. Most men have this ideal of the ideal woman being some sort of slave to them, because that's tyranny, which is pathologos. Why? Because if I have a beautiful woman, there's my beauty. I don't have to reach beauty through the logos and personal development. And there's my rulership, not through wisdom and art, but through slavery. Again, it's always the same thing. Tyranny is the rulership of belief. Philosophy or guruship or dialectic, the art of dialectic, is the rulership through the logos and understanding. They want to cosplay the knower. That's why people end up in relationships with people just like their mum and dad. They're models of beauty and excellence, which are always false. That's why we're in the problem we're in. So yeah, instead of learning how to be wise with a partner who also seeks wisdom, perhaps that would be Penelope. Let's find out. Maybe Achilles, maybe Hercules. In other words, doing literally what we're here to do, learn the mastery of the logos, understanding through the dialectic to remove your false beliefs and tyrannical power over people, to get or to develop excellence of knowing and understanding wisdom, to have power with people. Instead of doing that, let's just pretend that I'm a big, wise, strong knower, imitate my daddy and my preacher and my minister by having slaves. Yep. So I'd say that's the most common false image about the ideal woman from a man's perspective. Do many men think like this, or the loud ones online? Yeah, exactly. Yeah. So yeah, a friend in chat psyched saying, not all men, sus, not all men. Of course, the best of us are the ones seeking to specifically uncover the root images of our beliefs that do play out in our fantasies and relationships, to purify them through caring, supportive self-reflection and dialectic. Free ourselves from the problem so we can be free to discover the true nature of self, which also requires us to realize we don't know, which can be a shock. But that's okay. We recognize that. That's part of it. A step in our learning. And of course, therefore, we could say the ideal relationship would be, thumbs up, to create the ideal conditions for said self-reflection, to uncover our unsuspected beliefs and images and negative ways of being that we don't know we have. That's the blind spot. That's a problem. That's our problem. So the ideal conditions for self-reflection: support, never any punishment, ever. And the most ideal conditions: curiosity, wonder, seeking excellence, reading awesome books like this, the one that we're reading. To use the freedom from problems to discover the truth about the logos, mind, and self. Love and logos, baby. So that would be an excellent relationship, love and logos. Loud ones online and the ones who try to bend, break the law for religion and make reality via marrying children who they groom into their ideal woman. Yes. Right. So give someone power who is stuck in beliefs or pathologos, then they'll venerate or sanctify or universalize that their version of tyranny and injustice through laws and religion. Absolutely. It's not me who wants to oppress women. It's Abraham, Allah, Jesus. It's not me that says I get to have all the money and use capitalism and wealth inequality to exploit women. It's the free market. It's the law of capitalism. And anyone who speaks out, you use a word that dog whistles or implies evil, which we have seen isn't real. There isn't a principle of evil, it's just ignorance. And if you believe in evil, then you can't solve problems through understanding. You can just kill or justify. They're not human, they're just evil. So anyone who speaks up against my desire to abuse through capitalism, oh, they're socialists, or they're Antifa, they're woke, let's kill them. Anyone who speaks up against my, it's not my belief that I get to oppress women. It's God's belief. And if you disagree, we're going to genocide you because you're a heathen, or you're a goyim, or you're a heretic, or you're an infidel. All of these words that imply evil and wrongness and sin simply because you disagree with my family clan beliefs that I identify with. Always the same. Always the same. So therefore, to be a just person, our moral and ethical responsibility is to uncover our own. We all have this. Some have the power to play it out with greater scope, and some have worse pathologos, and some are more entrenched in their pathologos, but we all have them. Therefore, the ideal society would be not set up around exploiting people through what's the current society, capitalism, maximizing profit and exploitation above all else. That's a crappy principle to center a society around. It would be philosophical midwifery. The single focus of society could be set around creating the conditions for everyone to go through philosophical midwifery, which is learning of that dialectic, but applying it in the most important way to surface your false beliefs that cause your injustice and your imprisonment in fate, to free yourself so you can be free to know yourself and show yourself. That's the highest human functioning that we have. Therefore, would be the linchpin or the centerpiece or the focus behind a just society, as it would be in a just relationship or an ideal relationship. Every morning you can wake up with your beloved and say, what did you dream about? Because your dreams, 80% of dreams are, well, 80 is a loose, depends on where you are, but most dreams are about just that, Most dreams represent your false image and belief, plays it out in a movie, starring not you, you're asleep, starring an image that you identify with full of clues and metaphor and simile and furniture in the dream to give you clues to unpack and discover your own personal false beliefs about self and reality that causes your problems. That's what your dreams are. They're a gift, but you can only unpack the gift with the dialectic. And if you've got another person in your life that also wants to be themselves and be good and do good, oh, welcome for the follow. Thanks for the follow. Welcome to the channel. Then the ideal relationship would be to do that. What did you dream about? Encourage you to seek excellence. What's your highest goal? Do that, nothing less. Be a Penelope or be a Hercules, nothing less. And as you try, you'll face blocks. Never feel bad about yourself. Feel curious about your blocks, because the blocks are supposed to be there to tell you things about your pathologos. So, an ideal relationship, ideal society, and an ideal religion means belief. Let's get rid of religion. Spiritual practice. Can you master the logos to the level of Penelope, Hercules, and Achilles? And anything that gets in the way, can we have churches not of worshipping someone else, some image, or believing someone else, but have buildings where you can reflect on the blocks you've faced? Let's use AI not to manipulate people through their images and beliefs to exploit them, currently capitalism, but use AI to, and just AI is just algorithms, use algorithms to help recognize people who have pathologos similar to yours that you can meet up with over coffee and talk with, or to find an ideal midwife, or find an ideal piece of art written by someone who's gone through a similar piece of pathologos that you've gone through, that you can learn from their experience. If the dialectic is the one thing we're here to do, the meaning of life, and its highest application is removing our false beliefs and images that we are born to address, that limit our soul's development in higher dimensions, then that's how we would use technology and our time on the planet, as a model of excellence and justice. And as we read today, we're going to see if we can see that in the ideal archetypes of heroic characters. Penelope, Hercules, and Achilles. Do they represent what we've been talking about? I wouldn't call them men, rather immature. Yes, so they don't meet the standard for a true man. They are savages, not sages. They are zombies, not real men. I don't hate men. Generally, most are great and wholesome, but there are a few that need to be just away from society and reflect internally. That's the game. Mature people understand no one is perfect. I love your thoughts on the ideal environment to be best potential. Right, this is a different idea of perfection, isn't it? It's not a flawless ideal. You wouldn't be here if you didn't have anything to learn, considering learning is the thing that you do here. Perfection is rather recognizing that all of the problems you do have, you need to have as part of a system of justice, nothing other than playing out the implications of your false beliefs and images. So your problems are a kind of just balance of consequences, but providing the condition for learning. There needs to be learning for justice. It's not justice to always get punished for making mistakes. There has to be an opportunity to learn. So perfection is realizing all of the problems you have is a perfect representation of all the forces that your soul has experienced up until now, which is also a level of perfection because they are the perfect clues to examine the origin of your false beliefs, the perfect conditions for learning. So to recognize you're a perfect expression of those forces that must be perfectly presented to you as a gift for your development, that's the model of perfection in the physical world. Not a flawless ideal, that's the metaphysical world. And people chatting with themselves. Right, yo. Okay, so there are other people. So if this is the standard of truth and excellence, then this understanding of the logos and pathologos, understanding itself and belief itself, can be used as a model to judge other writers, Maslow, Jung, other people that influence society, Adam Smith, Nietzsche, Hegel, the big one, Aristotle. These are all implications of Aristotle. Because all of these authors will be at some level of recognition of the logos, development of the dialectic of the logos, mastery of philosophical midwifery, and at some level of block from that. And because we know Maslow and Jung and Hegel and Nietzsche haven't done philosophical midwifery and dream analysis, because we've only recently rediscovered it because we killed Socrates, it's taken us 2,500 years to rediscover Socrates, then they will have their pathologos. Of course they have. That's why they're here. So whether it's Jung, Nietzsche, Maslow, Jung, all the way to Putin and Trump and Netanyahu, they're all going to be at some level of development of the logos and at some level of enslavement by their pathologos. So as you read any of these authors, you can see, oh, I can see his pathologos coming up. Oh, I can see the steps of the logos. And what we're learning in the book is, how can we use the logos and dialectic to recognize states of development? Are they expressing beliefs, number 4? Are they following understanding, 3? Are they talking about an insight into being, a non-physical luminosity experience, 2? Are they talking about the cause even of that, self, 1? Yeah, here we go. Whoops. On the board. The state of self, know thyself. To grasp the logos as a oneness out of time eternally, second highest state of being, knowledge. 3, to follow and unify the logos in time, understanding, love and logos, philodianoia, the use of the dialectic, the third highest state of being. 1, 2, and 3 are the states of excellences that we want in our, not NBA players, but humans in positions of leadership. Ousia and logos, the intelligible states of self. And of course, our problems follow. When you fall from these, belief, a conflict between whole and part. Belief. Believers are in conflict within themselves and function in conflict towards others. Conflict within soul, conflict and harm in functioning. The power to do harm is taken as a feeling of knowing. That's sadism. Belief. Is whoever I'm reading, are they reflecting their beliefs and not the logos? And underneath that, people who leave belief but do not address the influences of their belief. You can't just leave the church and suddenly have no influence of the last 15 years of your life or 20 years of your life. You need to reflect through the dialectic. So if you're not there yet, that's why it's handy to have a friend who does the dialectic that you can talk to, so they can use their understanding to help you address your beliefs. Otherwise, if you leave the family or leave the church or leave the cult without a development of understanding and without an using of that understanding to remove your beliefs, you're still going to be influenced by your beliefs. Hey, if the people talking about God are these fucking crazy religious cultists, there mustn't be a God. Bullshit. Those people that you grew up with are not the ones speaking for God. They are believers imitating it. If you do that, you'll become a materialist or a mass of difference. Strict dualists. There is no divine, it's just the physical world. There is no consciousness or mind or beauty or enlightenment or development or stages of spirituality. No, it's just stuff, dust, rocks. There is no Rembrandt painting, it's just $4 worth of paint on a $10 canvas. That's a fifth state of mind. That all of these are in the text, by the way. So we can recognize what level of the author, what beliefs has he yet to acknowledge, how far along the logos does he get before he hits the block that represents his pathologos belief, or when does he just give up? And this state of knowledge, by the way, has levels of development within it. If you are familiar with the 10 ox herding pictures of Chinese Buddhism, Chinese, Japanese, Korean, Buddhism, represents 2 states of ignorance and 8 stages of spiritual development to do with this brilliant light of being. And of course, the state of self, the know thyself, the one or the good. So yeah, so whatever you're into. That's why we don't read those stuff yet. On the channel, we read someone who has the logos, Pierre Grimes or Socrates. Someone who's mastered the logos, so we can get the model, just like a doctor learns the model of the healthy body before he starts looking at sick bodies. But there are certain key figures who we do look at sometimes, like, for example, Paul. We can really heavily see Paul's false beliefs. In the book, we've looked at the writings of Mark about Jesus and the Gnostic Gospels, the Gospel of James and the Gospel of Thomas, Jesus' twin brother, and see how, hey, they have a higher, not completely, but they talk more about understanding. They better understand Jesus talk about understanding. They reach a certain level that we can judge. Of course, we can see their beliefs come in. Thomas thinks that the problems with, is it Thomas or James? I think Thomas, says, human problems are not caused by fundamental false beliefs. It's caused by sexual desire. That's obviously his problem he has. Obvious to see once you know what to look for. Equally so, Plato. Plato has some experience of the brilliant light of being, but didn't reach the level of depth that Socrates did. And Socrates, of course, talked about going beyond the brilliant light of being in that relationship with Diotima, the ideal loving relationship, love and logos, the beauty that you see in a person's body. You can go through stages to see it in, again, the stage of the dialectic, one body, many bodies, and then the principle of bodies. Just like today, hey, is punishment shit for geometry? One example. Many examples. Is it also shit for someone wanting to be a mechanic, or wanting to be a pilot, or wanting to be a BMX rider? Therefore, is it a principle that punishment never creates the conditions for learning and only ever puts you in a state of suffering, only ever teaches you to not focus on your art, but focus on some tyrant and try and avoid getting caught by them? One, many, principle. Socrates learnt that through a loving relationship, or love and logos, beauty. Can you see a beautiful body? Can you see 2 or more? The French call it a ménage à trois.
If you're disgusting, I'm so disgusted.
Sorry about that joke.
Freaks.
Sorry. Can you see, therefore, go from one to many to a principle? See the beauty of bodies are the same for all bodies? What happened to my music? Silence. What happened to my music? Oh, there it goes. Equally so, the next level, soul. Can you see a beautiful soul? Each level, there has to be logos, not just beauty, but beauty and logos. Can you make beautiful speeches about the beautiful person that you're with? How much of a hottie she is? You are the hottest hottie of all hotties. Let me speak about your hotness. For souls, can you share logos in a way that will improve can you see a beautiful soul? If so, you'll be willing to take beauty, body and soul together. Can you share logos about the soul in a way that helps the soul develop? So these kind of things that we learn here. equally so, stages, and then beauty of sciences or studies, beauty of cities, apply those, beauty of, I think it was cultures, and then sciences, and then the single silence, allowing you to apprehend beauty itself, from which you go beyond. So here you are at number 2, the brilliant light of being. But Socrates says, it's this that you use as the base for true self-excellence. If you want to be truly, eternally excellent, as immortal as any man can be, and friend of the gods, you have to go to use this as a base paradigm for excellence. So if this is beauty itself and justice itself, because we've been learning about it, it's not just overwhelmingly beautiful, we can also see its parts. So it's part and whole. Wisdom, just like with our geometry lesson, you see the whole of the equation and you can recognize the parts, so you can also see where the student is missing the parts. And you can use logos to help them see it as well. So if this is beauty, and because we can see the parts as well, justice, can this be the paradigm from which you develop true self-excellence and self-justice? So you can give birth to something higher. So we can have a loose model for recognizing Socrates reaches the state of self, Plato reaches a level of brilliant light of being, and Aristotle, of course, draws a line under this and only stays in the physical world, have Aristotle down here. Unfortunately, modern philosophy thinks Aristotle. The Roman tradition. Materialism. Our system of education. Break everything down into categories. Botany, chemistry, physics, all these different individual categories. Can you put them in physical boxes? And how do you do that? Torture nature till she reveals her secrets. Lots of experiments on various things. What does that end up doing? Makes nuclear weapons and guns. No understanding of whether we should have dug up these dangerous materials from the earth, nuclear materials, whether we should have made guns. No way of addressing the false beliefs that cause humanity to play out its problems to its inevitable extinction. No understanding of what we're here for. No understanding of the truth of justice and beauty, and no reaching of our ultimate purpose, the self. That's our modern educational system. And of course, Paul is the same. So religion stays down here as well. And you can make a case that because Jesus said, hey, while I give these stories in the Gospel of Mark, I give these stories to the many who don't understand, you have to unpack the analogies to develop understanding, to reach a state of mind I call heaven, which is why Jesus was able to say, oh, you're closer to the state of mind of heaven, you're not so much in heaven, you're in heaven, state of mind, and reach the self. You can make that argument that Jesus was saying that. We don't have to, because who gives a shit if Jesus said it? We can do it. But yeah, that's we can take this model with us as we read other people too. And in particular, key historical figures like Aristotle and Paul. So, the real question is how we can improve this. Both men and women can improve this. That's what we're learning. You're in the right place.
Oh boy, that is a little weird.
It's a little weird.
Okay, go ahead, man.
Okay.
I'm too pure. The more holes, the better.
You're in the right place. We have sound drops. I think by understanding and respecting our own autonomy and others' emotional regulation and allowing people to talk freely about their feelings, letting people feel the range, what they need to think, with men being not allowed to feel, that definitely needs to change, and society's expectations of what men should be. Get rid of the man up concept. Exactly, yeah. In other words, create the ideal conditions for philosophical midwifery. Talk about your states of mind. Not just talk about them like modern psychologists where you just relive negative feelings again and again. No. Have someone with the dialectic to help guide your understanding of those states of mind, how they function, if they have had a history through your life, and their cause, so you can address the false states of mind or the limiting states of mind through understanding to free yourself up from higher states of mind. You're right. This stiff upper lip bullshit needs to go. But also, there is no understanding it's all feelings has to go as well. Both of them are down here. You need feelings and or states of mind and understanding. Or the ideal state of mind is this, and the ideal understanding is this. Love and logos. In order for men to lead that charge, yes. So we need perfect example, Lord of the Rings, men cry and show emotions.
I'm looking for someone to share in an
Exactly. We're looking for men to share in an adventure. So, while we can represent the hero's journey within stages of development that we see categorized in film, like Frodo starting at home, comfortable way of being, call to adventure, crossing the threshold, developing challenges, slaying the dragon, and so on and so on. Stages of the hero's journey that we got from that we see in Lord of the Rings and Star Wars and all of the animes. What we are doing now is learning the archetype upon which they're all based. This is the hero's journey. Someone's going to come along as a philosopher, maybe this stream, but it's going to say this is a call to adventure. They'll say to you,
I'm looking for someone to share in.
say, there's an adventure and
You're a wizard.
you're a wizard, Harry. There is a new thing that you can learn that you're not taught at school, that needs to be the new thing taught at school, but not there yet, which is how to develop understanding, to discover the root beliefs that you are cause of your problems, freeing yourself up to master understanding or understand understanding. That's the art of the dialectic. That art of the dialectic prepares you to experience the true nature of reality and the self. That's the hero's journey. And not only doing that, but sharing it. Passing on the tradition. So at the end of the hero's journey, Frodo returns to the Shire, or Luke Skywalker returns back home, but with a new skill. A new special skill that allows him to benefit his home. That's the dialectic. In your own journey, by sharing it with others, you can help others on their journey too, which is the Dharma successorship. You keep the tradition going. And every new person can add their own unique perspectives and experiences to that development, just as it took us 2,500 years to be able to read Socrates properly, because philosophers without the influence of their beliefs, Pierre Grimes. But Pierre Grimes has added to the Socratic tradition. We will add to the Socratic tradition. We stay in this. We keep going. Support each other. The people we influence, if they get into it too, and so on and so on. So we will, as said in the text, we will give birth to in our relationships that we develop here. Not babies, not wee little babies, wee babies, like a chicken, but we'll give birth to works that can last in mankind for 1,000 years and rival even the works of Homer and Hesiod. Gimli. Lord of the Rings, yes. So we want to use like these fantastic. Now you could ask the question: why does Lord of the Rings have this kind of appeal? Could it be that it is intuitively tapping into this hero's journey that we are learning in the that we are mapping the stages of the hero's journey here through understanding. Which can also lead to the question, could you, if you master this, create Lord of the Rings 2? Lord of the... Lord of the Planets? Lord of the Bracelets? I don't know. Could you create your own? With this model, could you create works of art like that? I've been new to the Twitchverse and surprised that it's not only video games. Yeah, that's why this channel is a little bit weird. We are not doing video games, we are reading a book. But, wait, the book here. That's the book. That's the book. Wait, that one. But it is the archetype for video games. We're learning the archetype of video games. We are reading the book in the same way you'd solve a puzzle in a video game. We're looking for the puzzles, we're looking for the patterns, we're using the material in the book to solve the patterns. So in other words, you're walking down a Resident Evil hallway, you see a painting with 2 gems and a door open. The next painting has 2 gems and a door open. The next one has a locked door, but there's a painting with only 1 gem. Ah, a pattern. I found the set of terms, I need to find the other gem, put it in that painting, that'll open the door. Same thing with this text. And it has to be in the text. You can't bring a gem from a different video game over. No, it has to be in the game. It has to be in the text. So the archetype of the hero's journey of video games, that's what we're doing here when we read this book. Wait. People making friends in chat, that's lovely.
The primary purpose of peanuts is not to murder, it's to eat for sustenance.
Yes, and the primary purpose of the community is to make friends and share these kinds of relationships that can create the ideal conditions for this flourishing of the logos and the discovery of and removal of our own pathologos. Yet, according to this state of mind, chalk, where may you place Maslow's peak experiences? Those moments where self melts into something greater, the crisp awareness of beauty, truth, the unity that feels beyond time and ego, the summit of his hierarchy where being itself feels luminous. That's interesting. Well, it sounds like you've got a familiarity with Maslow, so in one level, that might be your puzzle to solve. But we also have this model from the book of... So while we have... There's 2 basic things that we study, that we learn about here. Ontology, or what exists. Ontos means being. And how do you perceive it? For example, there's a physical world of becoming that we perceive through our physical senses. We see images, we develop beliefs and opinions from our physical senses. We can separate our soul from our body. That's the exercise of philosophy. And so long as we're not running or flying around the physical world, you can experience the realm of being, different dimension. That's the experience of knowledge. Where's a better one? Which has more? Here we go. Here we go. Physical senses. The world of becoming. Because everything is in change in the physical world of becoming. And you begin your development by philomethesis. Philo means love, and methesis means learning. You learn to love. Wait, you love learning. You love learning about things in the physical world. But it's through your physical senses. And then you realize, hang on a second, for there to be, so you mentioned beauty and stuff, you realize, hang on a second, there are these things that I experience as adjectives in the physical world. A beautiful puppy, a beautiful person, a beautiful streamer.
Bless you. Excuse you. Bless you.
And you have to ask the question, hang on a second, what is beauty? It's not a physical thing, but I recognize it. I've never seen physical beauty walking down the street. In other words, I haven't seen it as a noun, only an adjective. Truth, sameness, wholeness, all of these things that we think through, whole, part, same, different, like, unlike, all of the things that we seek with our soul, goodness, justice, beauty, you've never seen them in the physical world. That's the awakening of philosophy, philos sophia. In other words, there has to be a metaphysical dimension or prior to physical dimension that has the causes, principles, and conditions for those things that we experience in the physical world. The movement from philomathesis to philosophy. True philosophy, not Aristotle, Socrates. So it sounds like Maslow is having moments in the physical world of becoming where he's realizing, or he's more open to seeing, the effects of beauty, of justice, of truth in the physical world. So he's seems to be in a process of transition or potential insight within learning, within the physical world. So an insight experience. Now, of course, having an experience isn't enough. That's why the learning we're here to do, we call dianoia, understanding. And the art or the subject is philodianoia, love of understanding. If Maslow were to meet someone like you and you could take him through a dialectic like this, stages of reflection on his experience, on his highest experience, because those are the two things you can reflect on. Either those highest experiences you mentioned, or the blocks that you have, your lowest, your blocks, the things that piss you off and cause you problems. Those are really the two kinds of conversations you can have. You could say a third is about your dreams, but the dreams will just tell you about that. So you can guide him through a systematic reflection, understanding, dialectic of those things he's experiencing to help him realize the necessity as understanding of the world of being. Then you can open a Balboa translation of Plato, because all the other translations have been dog shit, or any of the books written by Dr. Pierre Grimes, like the one we're reading now, which will talk about the nature of this non-physical world of being. That's metaphysics, really. The personification of those principles is theology. The sharing it with others, sharing the principles, that's the logos, by the way. The logos is the intelligible nature of reality. It's the cause of thinking and rationality, but it's also apprehended as well directly. So we use a fancy word called intelligible. Sharing your insights about metaphysics is mythology. It's Lord of the Rings. Could be if Gandalf represents beauty and Frodo represents justice, and the way that Gandalf and Frodo relate represents what you have seen in the relationship between beauty and justice eternally, that's true mythology. That's the spiritual experience. And there's levels of development within that can be mapped to the ox herding pictures. But of course, that culminates in the highest peak experience of wisdom, or wisdom is having that knowledge of this, which is experienced not through your physical senses, but through a sixth sense that we awaken called ousia. But if you experience it and understand it, you've got wisdom. That's the one of the questions we have is, what is exactly wisdom? But we're playing with the idea, we're carrying it from the text, that it's both knowledge of the world of being and understanding together. So the aspects of being is ideas. In school, they've mistranslated this as forms. They're not forms. They're not concepts either. They're eidos. They are the beauty, justice, same, whole, all of the logos. And if you have understanding and knowledge, you can deeper and deeper and deeper. It has a hyparxis. Hyparxis is the top. Just like when you're talking to Maslow, to go back to your question, you are talking about his peak experiences in the physical world. That's the hyparxis. If you like beauty, justice, truth, these sorts of things, if you reflect on them with understanding, you can see that the peak of one level is also the bottom of the next level. So while you can experience a beautiful streamer or a beautiful puppy, kitten, it's the reflection of that you can realize, hang on a second, this beauty must exist in a higher way on a different dimension. That's called incommensurate. You've gone from milliliters to kilometers, two different kinds of things, two different senses. Equally so, your development through being has a hyparxis. Again, through understanding, you can, while the experience is an all at oneness, you can go back into your body and reflect on it, do the learning that you do in the physical world, preparing yourself for higher and higher levels of it, and realize, hang on a second, there is even a peak experience of reality itself, which is the doorway to the self. There's something of that in the highest sense that also you take with you to the self. Because the self, being that which experiences all experience in either the world of being or becoming, has to be prior to experience, has to be beyond experience. It can't carry any experiences because those experiences would get in the way. It can't be blue because it can't be green, because if it's green and it experiences a yellow, it will never experience yellow, it'll experience purple. If there's any experience or quality of self, it will get in the way from you being able to experience as all of the qualities that you can experience going through your development in a soul. In the world of becoming, awakening to experiencing the soul itself in the world of being, even the ultimate experience of beauty and justice and bliss is still an experience. So that's our big question. What is the self such that it's the cause for a knowledge and it's the cause of our physical world, the cause of knowledge and understanding, the cause of being and becoming, knowledge and understanding being how we think, etymology, being and becoming being the dimensions. It's the cause of both. It's the cause of them, but it experiences them, but being its cause, it has to be greater on a higher level. That's the self of know thyself. That's our goal, to know thyself, taking with us everything we learn along the way. Wisdom, but ultimately understanding. So using that as a map, and again, all of this you can piece together, you have to piece together yourself. Don't ever believe me. Because if it's just a belief, then someone's going to come along and give a different belief that's going to be more familiar, you're going to be more familiar with. It's going to reflect your parents and your religion a bit more, and you'll believe them for a while, and you'll be all this logos shit, all this dianoia, philodianoia, and dialectic stuff. Philodianoia, love of understanding. Garbage, because they tricked me. Because it was only a belief. That's dangerous. That's the most dangerous condition you can have in the soul. A fear or hatred against the logos. That's why fascists come after philosophers first, or thinkers first, understanders first. That's why all the religions are always in conflict with themselves and others. They're always killing each other, but they will unify against understanders. So don't ever believe this. What we are learning by learning how to read, by reading the kick-assest text in the world, we're learning how to read, we're learning how to understand. We're learning how to think, how to look for puzzles, how to piece the puzzles together in a structure called the dialectic. finding that there are steps that will always be the case, the stages of the dialectic reflection that we've gone through about why punishment is bad, why hell doesn't exist, why forgiveness is just a reflection of that. So you can give up hell and sin and the idea of forgiveness and replace it with actual learning, wisdom, parts and wholes, the dialectic. Those stages of reflection that we have ourselves and we can share with others will always be true. Always. So it's a learning that you can take with you wherever you go in this lifetime and beyond. And you can always benefit someone with. It's that understanding that you have to apply to all of your questions. So don't let me ruin any of your questions. Carry them. To carry a question is to be on a quest. So this is us. This is us in Lord of the Rings. In the book, Socrates says, many are the people who call themselves wizards, but the only true mystics. Many are the staff bearers, but the only true mystics are us, philosophers, or what we call philodianoias. We're on the archetype of the hero's journey. So what does it mean? Well, we have to look for questions in the text, and you carry them in your inventory in your question set.
Okay, go ahead, Matt.
You learn the dialectic so you can develop your own hypotheses. Now, they're only ifs. You don't know. They are likely, rational hypotheses. You don't play favorites like a believer. I only believe that problems are caused by the devil. No, that's one hypothesis. Carry them in your hypothesis sack in your inventory. See what plays out. Which one ends up being more explanatory of the text as you read. Question sack, if sack. Play with analogies to discover those questions and find the answers. So don't let me. That's to be on the hero's journey.
You're a wizard, Harry. Wow.
Okay, go ahead, Matt. You're going around doing that in the weirdo pool. That's you.
If you're not reading that way, you're doing that in the weirdo pool.
He better not.
And we better not. So, I hope that has given you something to think about. Is there another word for forgiveness? Understanding? How, like, if someone said, I did that bad thing to you, I'm sorry. Say, fuck off with your sorry. Do you understand why you did it? Because if you don't, you can do it again tomorrow. Did you understand the effect that it had and why it was negative? Is it a simple mistake, like a one-off, or is there a pattern? If it's a pattern, then simply understanding it's wrong is not going to change your mind, because
the problem is that you can't reason someone out of a position that they didn't reason themselves into.
Because you might not have learned it through reason. It could be a clan belief that you're identifying with from childhood. If it's a repeating problem that has a history. So again, it's always the same thing. Stuff your sorries in a sack, and throw it in the river, and instead dialectic with me, baby. Because all problems are solutions that no longer apply. Even the pathologos has an evolutionary significance before we had language and self-reflection. So that would be the alternative to saying I'm sorry, or saying 10 Hail Marys, or whatever, or paying a fine, or rotting in prison, or being shot by the Israeli Jewish whatever. Knowing that if I was also them, I'd most likely have made the same choices and mistakes. Yes, that's recognizing the sameness. That's looking for the self. Exactly. That's understanding. Anyone given that upbringing and giving that movement of the soul through many lifetimes would be acting in this way. That's why, and so again, so that you can turn that into a dialectic. We've got a few dialectics on why punishment can't be a thing and why it's bad. But what you've just said, knowing that if I was in the same situation, having the same causes, I would have had the same effect or acted in the same way. you can structure that into a dialectic format. Make that a dialectic. Can you have the four parts of the dialectic? Let's find it on the board. Do another one, why not? Here we go. Can you give a definition of this principle? Show how it functions as a demonstration. Show how that demonstration can function in different areas, how it affects other things. And having been affected by that, how that person can relate back to the original principle. Or can you give one example of this? Give many examples, lead someone to realize that from these many examples there's a principle, and then can you use that to prove your point? That of what will happen if you have punishment and what won't happen, or what will happen in a universe where punishment exists, and what will happen in a universe where punishment doesn't exist, but instead you have understanding. So make that dialectic. Share it with us in the Discord if you want. Practice it with your friends over coffee. Cheers. I do music too. I do. At least trying to when he has time. He's a great musician. Oh, that's very nice of you to say. I will be streaming more music soon. I've got my setup. It's just a matter of finding hours in the day where I can play. But hopefully I'll have a stream this morning. So it's quite late for me at the moment. But I'm going to make sure my streamer isn't streaming. Nope, not today. Yeah, I'll be doing some music. And we can talk about philosophy and stuff and listen to music. Comfortable, that is. No need to pressure anyone to speak on their beliefs. Recognition, acknowledgement, acceptance. Understanding. I'm always comfortable. I have a PhD in experimental psych. I love video games and I love nature. Also backpacking and camping. Wow. That's awesome. Is there access to this chalkboard thing? I don't know. Is there? I could implement it. I'm always looking to improve my Twitch experience. Like that. I did a Zoom a couple of days ago. I made that. So if you, I don't know, maybe we could get other people writing on the board too. That'd be fun. I don't know. All of the past streams are on YouTube. So I post them on YouTube for people to discover at their own time. There's a lot on there. Look at how much stuff we know. My God, we're so smart. Look at this. You can tell how smart we are by the length of this line. We are this many smart. Change lives with your research. Yeah. Imagine if he introduced the logos into his field. What would happen? We can guess. He'll have remarkable success, but at every level of success, there will be pushback, counterattacks from within and from others, from his own false beliefs trying to defend himself, undermine his understanding, hold on to his old way of being, and from others whose their own way of being and beliefs will be challenged by the logos, because that's what the logos does. It has to. If we are specifically here as souls to find the false image of the self that prevented us from recognizing ourselves as being and beauty and reality, if you think you're not good enough, I'm a small being, I'm not ultimate beauty, then you can't endure this experience and reach it and integrate it at its highest depth, kicking yourself back out into a physical world, physical incarnation. Meaning our purpose here is to surface whatever small bean, bad noodle images of ourselves that we have so we can remove them. And you can only do that if you seek excellence in something that has the logos in it. Music, math, psychology, philosophy, this, reading, cooking, maybe. I don't know much about cooking. Understanding the world, solving problems globally. As you seek mastery of or seeing the logos in that thing that you are focused on, you'll surface the pathologos, which is that false image that you're here to do. So you will hit blocks. You're supposed to hit blocks. You're supposed to have negative or black states of mind and blocks and negative self-talk, negative states of feeling states and stuff. And that will play out in your dreams, in your daydreams, in your fantasies, and in your everyday life experience. You'll find some weird critter come along and say, oh, I hate that you're doing that to psychology. And he'll reflect your dad, and he'll be like your mum. That's part of the justice of reality. Our thing is, can we develop virtue as we go? Can we keep our cool in those moments? Can we look for the patterns? So that's keeping your cool, temperance. The virtue of temperance, or the belly in Taoism. Can you hold on to the truth that you've been learning about the logos as you go? That's the heart. Courage. Seek the truth even when it's scary to drop your old states of being and your old images. Can you, when those things happen in your dreams, daydreams, random thoughts, fantasies, and people experiences, can you look for patterns? That's having a good head, or the virtue of wisdom. Wisdom as a virtue. So temperance, courage, wisdom. Belly, heart, head. And can you do this at all times as a way of being? Have that state of being, cool mind, keeping your cool, seeking truth and excellence, holding on to what you learn, being brave even when it means dropping old stuff, and looking for patterns, following the logos, following the dialectic at all times. Doing it at all times, justice, which means that inner state of justice we've been talking about, that ideal of that samurai. Flow state. Always functioning through it. So yeah, developing the virtues as you develop mastery of the dialect. I'm more of a teacher than a student. No, more of a teacher than a researcher. Long story. Gotcha. Thank you for being a teacher. Teach anymore. Academia isn't my friend. Tell me about it. Hey, Sophina. Welcome, Sophina. My apologies. Hello, how are you doing today? Hello, Sophina. Wary traveler, stuck with googly eyes on them to raise my stats. What? Googly eyes. I need to go, so farewell, awakening philosophy, and be well. Sophina, welcome in. Hope you have a lovely day, psych. Yes. Mail me all of my Kinder eggs. How are we for time? All right, so good review and bringing us up to speed. And our question is, how the heck can, given everything we've said today in this introduction, long one, how does Hercules, Achilles, and the ideal woman, Penelope, fit with everything we've said about justice and excellence and the meaning of life to master the dialect, bringing about that inner virtue and state of inner excellence? That's our question. We're going to carry our questions as we read. That's part of the game. That's the fun. It's a win-win.
It's a win-win. Where's the joy? Where's the whimsy? Where's the childlike wonder, dude?
That's the fun of it, dude.
The more holes, the better. Bless you. Excuse you. Bless you. Bless you.
And that's what we'll be doing now. take a quick bio break and I'll be right back. Here's the book. So, there is a discussion that Socrates had in Hibben with Orifice and Mustachio. Before finding the idea of justice, let's look at examples, which actually fits with the model we've been developing along the way of this. Find one example, many, principle, apply it to the thing. So can we find some examples of just people? Stages of the Dialectic in Conversation is the title of that thing on the board. Okay, so Mustachio said, can we find some examples of the ideal woman and the ideal man? The ideal woman who stands above all others. So what is the ideal? One who stands above all others. Who is the bestest? Who's the bestest person? Woman. And as a model for the ideal woman, just as a just man should be the model for the ideal man. So, we've got 3 on the table. Achilles. Achilles is the worst. But how is he a hero then? We have Penelope. In Achilles, we have the worst becoming the best. Is that an archetype? Do we need for humanity an archetype of what it would be like for the worst person? The Netanyahus, Putins, and Trumps of the world, the Elon Musks of the world, to become the best. The Hitlers and Stalins of the world. Is there a model that all living beings can go through? If so, can we represent that as a story? And in our story, can we make them a hero? Is that Achilles? Now, what makes Penelope a hero? Heroine? Homer offered a prize if we could say why the greatest hero, Hercules, could be at the same time both in the house of Hades and feasting with the gods. We played with that one last time a little bit. If the kind of learning and excellence we're here to achieve is the dialectic, what's that feel like? We can recognize the state or the feeling state or the state of mind of belief because there's someone who's fucked up. They're in conflict within themselves. That's not an opinion. It's not something from observation, but it does apply to observation. Because you recognize that the self-logos terms are what Pierre called the selfers. We've got whole. These are the pairs. Whole and part. So these are the everything you've seen is a whole of parts. Everything you've experienced is as a whole of parts. Your thinking is in whole and parts. And the book begins by saying, hey, if anyone's going to speak for Jesus and Socrates, they have to be able to represent the whole of them and understand our parts. And we've been talking about the teacher of geometry, recognizing the whole of geometry and recognizing the part the student makes wrong. And we've also contrasted that with believers who are not teachers, fascists, who do punishment because they don't have that. So they blame problems not as a part that's not in harmony with the whole, but you're just a bad child. You're a naughty child. You're a bad person. You're a sinner. You're a heathen. You're not the right religion. You're not the right color. You're an immigrant. All this fucking bullshit is nothing other than people who do not have the whole and part through understanding and knowing, pretending they do. The worst people in power. Same and different. Like and unlike. Limited and unlimited, or free or infinite. And of course you fill in the rest. I don't do everything for you. We have same terms, different relations. So for states, feeling states, states of mind, we have same terms, only two things, terms and relations, things and relationships. Same terms, different relations. Make some space up there. Same, notice same terms, different. So we're using it in our thinking. Different relationships. Analogy, of course, is same relationship, different terms. So we have 5, which is disconnect or dualist, disconnected. That's the massive difference. Only apart. Pelosi and Chuck Schumer and all of the Democrats who are not doing anything while the fascists hurt everyone and destroy the world say, well, hey, I'm just I'm just a part. There is no principle that the fascists are violating. Let them do it. Okay? Disconnected. We have belief, conflict. They are a part in conflict with the whole. They are different in conflict with the same. They have limited. They're in conflict with people who are free. Let's fill out the whole thing. Let's do an even 6. Just so we got more to play with up in here. One color. Limited, unlimited. What else do we have? We got time is the last one. I'm missing one. Whole, part, same, different, like, unlike. Limit, unless. See, these two are easy because they're like each other. I'm missing one. What is it? It's a fundamental unit of thought and perception that I'm missing on the board here. Rest. Everything you've seen has either been at rest or in motion. And in time, out of time. Timeless. Let's say out of time. So, people who are believers, we can recognize them by their feeling state. not just in their conflict creation in the world, but their conflict eternally. They will always cause conflict. Believers will always cause conflict. They can never be at peace. You can never be at peace if you are a believer. And good fucking God, hopefully, I mean, thank goodness it's the case. If you could be at peace at belief and your purpose is to develop understanding, that would be a pretty fucked universe. There would be no justice. Which is why it's important we have to get rid of kings and clergy who operate at the level of conflict or belief as a cognitive function and a way of being, a feeling state of mind. 3 is understanding. Let's put the terms as well in here. That was 5 equals disconnected. 4 is conflict. That's disconnected are difference, massive difference, or dualist. What do we call them? Slop, relativist, strict, dualists, conflict are believers, or belief, yeah, believers. Understanding is number 3. We could say that's providential connection, or a intelligent, caring, which is providence. Connection. Two is knowledge or mind, which is a it's the positives of both, right? It's the greatest positives of both. It's highest, both as a whole, as a oneness. So the highest superlatives, that's metaphysics, by the way. It's knowing. Knowledge. So that's metaphysics. So the highest of the whole and all of the parts. So seeing all of evolution, all of eternity, all of the universes all at once as a whole. So knowledge. So therefore, to have knowledge of your art would be to understand it as a whole and see through it. Can you see all of reality as a whole? Completely free, but nothing outside of it. This is important because people who've had these experiences, you want to make sure, well, it can be helpful to understand your experiences and the experiences of people that you're caring about. And so the language people use will be their own. That's important. And they had their experience. You say, okay, well, what was it like? Tell me about it. Use your own language. And which means avoid things you've seen written in a scripture or something. Just, speak from the heart. Giving birth to your idea through your own words, through your own logos. But you as the person who has the understanding can use this to recognize what they're talking about. Do they talk about seeing infinity? If so, you can ask the follow-up. This is the Resident Evil hallway. There's a painting, and they've got one gem in one of the face's eyes, but you got to put the other gem in. That's solving the puzzle. So they're talking about, I was experiencing everything as infinity. Well, first of all, you translate their language into the logos. They're talking about unlimited. But there's the other eye here. Oh, ask them a question like, oh, by the way, was there anything outside of it? I mean, it was infinity in all directions, but was there anything outside of it? And give them space to think or whatever. Because they can these sorts of questions can bring that experience back into their mind and memory, which is why the ideal loving relationships, love and logos, that's why it's love and logos. As soon as they have an intimate experience, a profound experience, a beauty experience, or a knowledge experience, you're right there to ask them these questions, so it's fresh in their mind, fresh in their memory. It's like a dream. The quicker, the sooner you talk about it, the better you're going to remember it. So, by the way, was there anything outside of it? So now they're remembering that infinity, but they're also thinking, hang on a second, yeah, there wasn't anything outside. Oh. So, isn't that weird? Normally, doesn't infinity go on forever? Yes, in the physical world. That's the incommensurate nature of physical world and being, or understanding and knowing. Well, not understanding. Understanding transcends the physical world, but physical sense and pure knowing. So it's infinite in all directions, but hey, it's self-contained. There's nothing outside of it. How can you be infinite in all directions, but there's nothing outside of it? Oneness. That's the kind of oneness it was. It's going to help them understand. It's going to help them bring it back into their memory, and that's the two things you want to do. Always apply. Whether you're a monk in Tibet, meditating, having this experience under a waterfall, or whether you're a Chinese Buddhist and an ashram doing it, or whether you're some Western jabroni at a music festival, it's always the same. It's the highest of both. And of course, question mark. The state of self, baby. State of self, baby. That's right, baby. State of self. So, states of mind that we're playing with here. Recognized by the self-logos terms. Same terms, different relationships. So what? So we can always. We don't have to have another dictator. We don't have to have another evangelist con artist, or preacher grifter, or murderous imam, rabbi, etc. Yeah. There are hundreds of titles for the people who claim to speak for God. Everyone's different, so at least everyone except one has been wrong. So let's fucking grow up. But also, we don't have to have the next one. If we understand as a principle what the cognitive state of belief is, a fundamental conflict between the elements of thought, perception, and reality, it will always be in conflict. Or to say it another way, they will never be at rest. They will never be free. They will never experience the truth of the divine, which is outside of time. They will always be in opposition to the whole of humanity. They will always be killing each other. Always. So whenever a politician starts a sentence, well, I believe every single journalist, reporter, interviewer, debate moderator say, I'll stop you there, fucko. It's your belief that, fuck off with belief. You will always be in conflict, always doing harm, if what you are saying is a belief. I believe the whites are. Stop you there, fucko. I believe that women are. I'll stop you there, fucko. As a Christian, I believe we should bomb. I'll stop you there, fucko, before you even tell me who we should bomb. Belief will always cause conflict. That's what it means to understand. You don't have to experience the next fascist, the next crusade, the next genocide. Equally so for yourself, You don't have to experience the next heartbreak or the next problem or the next block in your dreams, your fantasies, your daydreams, or your real life experiences, or your reincarnations. That's the significance of understanding. Once you've understood it, you can see it as a principle. You don't have to play it out and experience it again. Once you understand why your car needs oil, you don't have to experience your car breaking down for the 5th time again. That kind of thing. Always. But if you are a human being, you are in that development from 4 to 3, because you get beliefs as a baby. We all do. Which means this understanding, which can put an end to tyranny and suffering internally and for our race, we will be in conflict with. This understanding of understanding that solves problems forever, we will be in conflict with, because every single human being is a believer until they go through philosophical midwifery and dream analysis. We are savages in conflict with our own understanding, intelligence, caring, and connection. We are in conflict with knowledge and reality. That's the stage of evolution humans are at, which means as you learn this, you will have the voice of your belief that echoes your parents from childhood, which reflects the religion and cultural beliefs too, and that of your grandparents and great-grandparents all the way back to the cave. That echo of that voice will fight against you and say, fuck off with understanding, fuck off with reading, do something else. Give up. Just as we share this with the world, the biggest, cruelest, most sadistic fascists will say, fuck off with understanding, my beliefs are special. My ability to exploit my congregation is special. My ability to murder those Palestinians is special. My ability to bomb those countries is special. My beating up immigrants in America while wearing a mask as a fucking cowardly ice piece of shit is special. Yes, the worst people will fight against understanding. Just as the worst aspects of your soul will fight against your own understanding. We have to acknowledge this, because we are not going to solve human problems unless we acknowledge we are human beings in that very problem we're trying to understand and solve. It's no good just saying, oh, here's the meaning of life. Here's the meaning of life. It's just this. Understanding the dialectic. It will allow you to understand all perception, all dimensions of reality, all cognitive functions, and the progression humans make as we go through it. That's not enough. Who gives a shit? I already believe the truth. I already think I know what the self is. I already think I know what God is. I already think I know what I am. Says everyone. That's the difficulty. That's why heroes are rare. Takes a special kind of person, Pierre Grimes, to not be enslaved by his beliefs so he could see the understanding Socrates shared. Took us 2,500 years. Takes a special kind of character to stay with this game. Even if I have hilarious sound drops.
I'm too pure.
Don't be disgusting.
Do a poggers.
That's weird that you think that.
Go ahead.
Bless you. Excuse.
Awesome, man.
The more holes, the better.
It's a little odd, you know.
That's weird that you think that.
The primary purpose of peanuts is not to murder, it's to eat for sustenance.
See? All of the funny ones. So, we are human beings in this progression from 5 and 4 to 3. That's the stage we're at, which means they will fight against it, because that's all they can do. You can't save belief. You can't take belief onto the next level. You can't take milliliters into kilometers. It's two different things. It's a jump. So that's why this is the golden ratio. This is the golden analogy. the phi ratio. It's incommensurate, like pi. It's a number that goes on forever. Which is a mathematical representation of the fact that these are jumps. You can be a strict dualist, a materialist, and you'll go far and you go, okay, there's only the physical world exists. All of these beliefs that I got indoctrinated, I'm leaving, but I'm leaving down. There is no God, there is no meaning. Everything is garbage, everything is just atoms, chemistry in your brain. But then you can be led to reflect on the principles that have to exist in reality, or the flaws in materialism and reductionism to a point, but then you got to jump. You can start by learning and developing right opinions by belief, which is a kind of belief, about how understanding is better. How your beliefs in Jeebus or Muhammad or Allah or Joseph Smith or Zeno, I try and list as many so you know you're not special in your belief. There are thousands of gods. You saying there's only one God and it's the one I believe, fuck off. That's so immature. It's so irresponsible, so arrogant. You think your parents were wiser than the guys next door? The guys next door have a better car than you. How can you think that? Your gods were better than the Greek gods, better than the Roman gods, better than the just list. Barbarianism, savagery. But you can understand the significance of that, how it takes maturity and rationality to say, well, maybe if everyone else is wrong, maybe my parents were wrong too. Or maybe belief as a principle is wrong. Maybe understanding is what everyone benefits by. But you can even say, oh, but Jesus said it. Jesus talked about understanding parables. Jesus talked about states of mind, not actual kingdom of heaven in the sky. But there'll be a point where you have to jump. And that can be scary. It takes courage. Let go of the old way of being. Let go of beliefs. Because understanding is different. Nothing in what we've said is a belief on this board. All of the words are not to do with Jesus or the founding fathers or dear leader. You never see a hole walking down the street. You never see different at a party. None of these terms are physical. They're all principles for physical existence. That's understanding. It's also the preparation for knowledge. The two of which are needed to reach your true goal, to know the self. But it's these two that will be in opposition. Strict dualists and believers. So what? So we want to know what understanding is. Understanding seems to be an intelligent, caring connection between the two, while belief is conflict between the two. So you're apart in conflict with the whole as a belief, but in understanding you are seeing the whole and able to address the parts. Like a geometry teacher, I see the whole of this equation or the whole of geometry and I can recognize the part that you are stuck in, student. Or I can be in a state of being free while addressing the limits of belief, helping other people through midwifery and dialectic. So, our state of mind, ourselves being the whole, being out of time, being at peace, temperate, being free, being the same as the self, in the state of mind that's like the self, while our functioning can help people in the physical world in time, in their drama in motion, in their thoughts, daydreams, fantasies, and everyday experiences, their limits of their problems or belief, the things that make them unlike themselves in their conflict, unlike other true human beings, make them different from their own selves, make them stuck as a part disconnected from the whole. See, we've understood what it means to be understanding, which is a kind of functioning here from a state of being of here. allowing us to take or sew together this model that we've got from earlier in the text with the question in the text that we're reading right now. How can the greatest hero, Hercules, be at the same time both in the house of Hades? Our answer is in our functioning. If the house of Hades is not a literal hell, but on planet Earth, where people play out their beliefs, which are false, your beliefs, your identity that you experience in your Earth, on your Earth existence, that will fade over time, just as the ghosts in Hades are said to play out until their energy dissipates as shadows. Because you're not the self, you're not the physical, you're not your physical image or your physical body. The physical body will turn to dust and your identity isn't real, it doesn't have a lasting existence. That's why it's not a real teaching. It's that false A is to be as A is to be. Belief is a redundant analogy. It's not real learning. It can't progress. Whereas this, the logos, understanding, as Diotima taught Socrates, so too Socrates can teach us. So too we can teach someone else. That's the thing that can last 1,000 years and be a rival to Homer and Hesiod. That's the model of learning. The logos is the model of learning. It's also the model of spirituality, so we call it the Dharma. Dharma just means spiritual teaching. So, understanding what understanding is, isn't that neat? It's self-reflective. It's ousia. These three are all self-reflective. They're all of the self and ousia. So that's it. You've solved the equation to the perfect woman. Don't be disgusting.
Whore.
Or
That's anti-feminist in some way.
Reeve, you're being anti-feminist in some way. We're getting to that. We are on the perfect man. The perfect man is Hercules. We've got one ideal of Achilles, who is the worst believer, the worst person ever, who became a hero because he was able to understand the root causes of his beliefs through dream analysis and midwifery, develop intelligence, and have an experience of the brilliant light of being. That wasn't enough. He still had his problems, so he had to keep reflecting on his beliefs and eventually reach a state of excellence of the self. So Achilles is a hero in that he went from the worst to the best, but Hercules is a hero because he was the best. The question is, Homer offered a prize if we could answer why the greatest hero, Hercules, could at the same time be both in the house of Hades, where we play out our shadows and images without a lasting reality, and at the same time feasting in heaven with the gods. And our submission for the prize, we are going to have to email the estate of Homer Zoom function, he is in the house of Hades in his functioning through understanding in the dialectic as the true hero, while he's feasting with the gods in heaven in his state of mind, which is the whole, which is free, which is out of time, which is at peace, which is taking this question in the text and tying it back in with in time with an earlier section of the text. Here we go, page 76, so all the way back here. Okay, let's read the whole section, why not? In philosophical midwifery, In philosophical midwifery, For a dream. Hey, Genevieve. The title, Are You Talking About Me? Oh.
I'm cute. Like, it's cutie pie.
Genevieve is a cutie pie. Before we get to the ideal woman, we have to talk about the ideal man, because men come first, because sexism.
That's anti-feminist in some way.
Sorry.
Talking about a bunch of slop.
Sorry about talking about a bunch of stuff. Afternoon, it's 12:01 p.m. It's 2 a.m. where I am. I have to get up this time to catch my streamer. Yeah, it's early for me. Right, so, question is, how can Hercules, the greatest hero, be both in the house of Hades and with the gods? And we're taking it all the way back to much, much earlier in the book, sewing the pieces of the text together. We're going to read this section and see if we can get an answer. In philosophical midwifery, for a dream... Oh, you're speaking in a strange language. Oh. Mystical code. In midwifery, for a dream to be able to be uniquely meaningful to each soul, it must have an image of the self that the dreamer can identify with. It must have a drama that has an analog with an unsuspected problem the dreamer is facing in his present world. Since the solution of one's unsuspected problem must be central to one's spiritual life. The source of the perfection of the soul lies in the discovery of its own higher reason for existing. Okay. Dreams have a drama following playing out the image, and that's solving that puzzle is essential to our spiritual purpose. And to perfect our soul means we have to recognize our higher reason for existing. This reason springs from an intelligence that it is also shares in, for it reverts upon itself in the very moment that it opens a more profound state of mind called the twilight of the experience of the intelligence. So this might have been what Chada talked about earlier. I'm from France, and Genevieve is a typical French name. By considering the time zone, she is most likely from Quebec. Ah, interesting. French Canada is the best Canada? I learned that from South Bay. So, I mentioned earlier, Abraham Maslow, I think the guy's name was, the Maslow guy. Had described his highest experiences in his life being more open to beauty and truth in his world. So we would call that the twilight of the experience of the intelligence. The way that it proceeds in this process of dialogue is the exercise of the cognitive faculty we call understanding. So we talked to our chatter earlier, say, hey, you want to talk to Maslow, and say, let's talk about those higher insights or those profound moments that you've had, and let's reflect on what they are and what the necessary conditions for them. That's the dialectic. So, and if you go through that process of reflection and understanding on those high experiences, or those moments of wonder and insight, or openness to beauty, it can culminate in the openness that is the shadow of the openness and freedom of a clear and pure mind functioning. So you can get a taste of what it's like to be in the state of self with a pure, clear, functioning mind. This philosophical way of proceeding highlights that its very mode of existing This way of proceeding highlights its very mode of existing, and in that turning about, which is an ousia movement, there's our lovely word ousia, turning upon yourself, it reverts upon the intelligence. Thus, this way of understanding unites into a oneness, and in doing so, it returns to its natural source, the intelligence. The source of our ability to reflect and understand is intelligence itself as a oneness. As a result, what before was a scattered multiplicity without coherence and integrity becomes a set of ideas linked together with an inner coherence that to grasp requires the intellect to be put into play. So, by reflecting on our highest experiences, also our problems that get in the way of those highest experiences through our dream analysis, seeing the image play out in the drama of our dream, but also the high experiences once we free ourselves or gain an insight into that, that systematic reflection through dialectic or question and answer understanding takes the multiplicity, puts it together, shows that it's understandable, shows that you can ask these same questions again and again. There's an inner coherence. It's always going to be the same. And that's bringing your own intellect into play, while also turning about on intellect, because that's what intellect is: beauty, truth, insight. The moment of insight reveals its mode of existence has a higher and more profound mode of existence, since it lacks any image of oneself. So that image that plays out in your dreams ain't present in those moments of insight, or profound wonder, or beauty, or truth. Free of the pathologos. So the shadows that play out in the physical world of Hades, our false images of ourselves, that play out with Musk doing his false opinions, and Trump and Bezos and Netanyahu playing out their false opinions to great disasters, that's the house of Hades. They're not real. They don't have a lasting existence. And the true high experiences that we can have are void of any image of the self. We can say that openness to those higher feelings with the systematic dialogue and reflecting on it, showing that is without an image, ushers in a dawning realization that the soul is not subject to time. Dramatic zoom.
Bless you. Excuse you. Bless you.
Bless me. So, our soul is out of time. So can we reflect on what we just read with these self-logos terms? We looked at the part playing out in our dream. We realized that that image playing out as a part with a drama in motion, playing out in the drama in time of our dream, limits us. And we see that that part is different from the self, what we are the same as. And in those higher experiences of a greater profound whole of beauty or justice or truth or insight, you see when you have an insight, you see things as a greater whole, and you realize that's the twilight of intelligence itself, to be the same as intelligence itself. That's also a feeling of openness and freedom or unlimitedness. And you realize that state that you are like is another word for feeling state. I feel like it. That state that you are like, or the soul, is out of time. So while our parts or our images play out on this side in time, most intelligibly in our dreams. So the best thing we can do is dream analysis. It has the most clues, and it's the most direct representation of your different idea of the self, the part that's different from the whole. that's unlike the true self and limited and always at motion and never in rest. So while our problems, images, and beliefs, especially in dreams, play out on this side, we realize in a reflection in time about the highest experiences that our self or state of being is out of time. And all of these other words come into play now on this side. As a result of the exercise of philosophy, the dialectic. Having two functions addressing our false images and blocks that play out in time, and also reflecting with our friends on their highest insights or openness or freedom, which is a more profound feeling of a whole. So are you addressing the part in your problems or dreams, or the whole in your, even in dreams, the highest insights you have? Those are the two kinds of conversations that you can have with people. Or gossip, which is just going to be about conflict and beliefs and images. So if you give up on gossip, there's only really these two kinds of conversations. About this or about this. And hey, if you are going to be having those conversations yourself, won't you do a much better job if you know the whole of it? If you are at peace, if you are free and open? Because to have these conversations, we can't bring in our own parts. We can't influence the dialogue with our own words. We ask questions to surface the words of the other person. It's their dream. It's their problems. It's their reflection. So the greater we can ourselves as our own soul be at peace, not getting pissed, be out of time, not wrapped up in the dramas, be free, and have an apprehension of the whole of the logos that we are using in our functioning through the dialogue, the better we are here, the better we can function here. So our hypothesis to answer the question that Homer put us, Homer asks, hey, you'll get a prize if you can see why the greatest hero Hercules is both in the house of Hades and feasting with the gods in heaven at the same time. Well, we say, well, okay, Hades is not actually hell. We've already answered that. It's the playing out of your shadows, suffering the consequences of your ignorance in planet Earth. So he's in Hades because he's functioning with people in time on Earth. While he's also feasting with the gods in heaven because his state of mind or soul or psyche is on this side of the self-logos pairs. So his state of mind is the whole while functioning with the parts, most heroically, which is the state of being of understanding. The lowest state is a disconnected dualists. There is no truth, just materialism. The modern Democrats, there is no principles, there is no truth, just let the fascists take over. Fourth, believers, they are in that internal state of so draw a straight line down there and you've got the modern Democrats. Dualists, strict dualists. There's only parts, there's no whole. Materialists, that kind of thing. Believers are in conflict. They want to blow up the whole of the world. They hate people who are free. They have to accept limits. Understanders seem to be, from our hypothesis, here as a state of being, functioning most intelligent and caringly, their providential connection. Knowledge would be perhaps all of the whole and all of the parts all at once in a oneness. So the greatest positives of both, which has allowed us to have that conversation with our friend in the afterglow of their experience. In that, if they have that profound spiritual experience, say, oh, what was it like? It was infinite. Oh, that sounds like unlimited. I'm going to ask you a question. I'm not going to give you my words. I'm going to use the logos though. Hey, even though it was unlimited, was it self-contained? Oh yeah, it was. So yeah, it did feel like infinity, but it was also a oneness. So the greatest infinity, or the greatest unlimited, and the greatest unified or limit, nothing outside of. So the greatest positives in both together, knowledge. And then, of course, if that's the case, what the heck is left for the state of self? That's the question. How can we understand what must be the state of self if the greatest positives together is knowledge and it transcends knowledge? What's curious is it seems like that state of self can also function as Hercules. So you don't lose the whole and the ability to function with the parts, but you're also operating from a higher state beyond both. That's the big question. So question mark. How can you use the logos to understand the self if it transcends that? That's the big one. But our question is, how can you be both in Hades and in heaven at the same time? And our hypothesis is as a state and as a function. Let's keep reading. The moment of insight reveals its mode of existence as a higher and more profound mode of existence. Since it lacks any image part of the oneself, we can say that it ushers in a dawning realization that the soul is not subject to time, out of time. Yes, these kinds of experiences prepare the mind for a more penetrating insight into our mode of existence, into its more profound way of functioning. So now we've got, so these kinds of experiences prepare the mind, provided we follow up with logos, love and logos, insight and reflection, state of mind and understanding, for a more penetrating insight into our mode of existence, one, and also into its more profound way of functioning too. So there's our Hercules hypothesis, mode of existence and functioning. And it has the power capable of reaching into what is most divine. This activity of the soul experience, the activity is the soul experiences is in time, but the states of mind, but in these states of mind, it steps out of the temporal passing phase of being and enters into the timelessness of reality. Wow. So the activity the soul experiences in time, while the state of mind is out of time. Timelessness of reality. So this is why it can be said that the soul's activity is in time and its existence is timeless or eternal. That would explain our friend Hercules. Hercules from the movie The Norbit the Clumps or something. Hercules. Anyway, bad reference.
Don't be disgusting.
Don't be disgusting.
Freaks.
Soul's activities in time, existence is eternal. We could conclude that since it reverts upon itself in its activity, we're reflecting on itself in that activity, and since it also is recursive in respect to its existence, so what we focus on is the self, the timelessness of self. The way we do it also is the logos, which is the eternal nature of self. So the logos, all of these things, all of these things we experience together in the timelessness of the self, but it's also what we use in our dialogue. Hey, talk about the whole of it in parts. So we are using these things in its activity, and also our state of mind is those things too. So the two things that we can do, what can we do? We can look things and look for things. But where do you look, or in other words, look at what, and what do you look for, or look how? What do you want to look at, and what do you want to look for, or how to look? How to look, or look. Yeah, look for, or how to look. So what are we doing? We're looking at ourselves, our profound states of mind, and how do we look, or what are we looking for? We're looking for the logos. So we're using the logos in our dialectical reflection, and we are encouraging the people to put logos on their words, on their experience. Now they'll use words like infinite, but we'll know it means unlimited. In other words, look at what? Yeah, look at and look for, because that's what we do with the self. We look. So all of these things like, hey, does the self have a color? Therefore, are you going to look at shapes and colors? It doesn't have a color. Does it have a shape? Then maybe you're not going to look with your eyes. So all of these things you can use in your dialectic. Hey, the self, does the self have parts? Is everything that you've seen a whole of parts? Therefore, are you going to look with your eyes? Are you going to look with your ears? Is yourself a thought, or is it the thing that has the thoughts? So, same thing. Look at and look for. It is in this example, like to ask the question of the self is a little bit further along. But we are looking at, hey, looking at the part in your dreams, playing out the image that's unlike the self, that has the problems, that is always in drama and is always stuck in time, different from yourself, the part. So reflect on the dreams to look at this, and look how this, using the logos. Or look at the pathologos, look how with the logos. Or you can ask people about their highest experiences. Those are the two things we're interested in, our highest and our problems. We naturally, so we don't need a koan. We don't have to go to Tibet and get a special mysterious question. What is the sound of one hand clapping? What is moo? We don't have to pretend that we're interested in their weird questions or koans, because we naturally have a question. That's why spirituality is not esoteric anymore. It's for everyone, because we're naturally curious about our problem, which is this side of the game, and we're naturally interested in our insights. And it's the questions of our insights that get us to reflect upon our higher states of self, which is the logos. The logos is the intelligibility of mind. That's pure intelligence. It's intelligible. It's intelligence. And the way we do it is through the logos, the dialectic. So what we're looking at and how we're looking, the two things we can do, is the logos, is the self. It's the same thing. And of course, problems are when people look at, this is another thing, so we can use this for punishment as well. Hey, when you're punishing someone, are you getting them to look at themselves, or are you getting them to look at you? That's the nature of sadism. Trump wants the people to look at them. Torturers want, hey, look at me when I torture you. That's fucking sadistic. Beliefs are sadistic. The priests, Paul wants to be the center of Jesus' religion. Preachers want to stand up on the pulpit. Trump wants to have his name written on his buildings. Netanyahu wants to be praised as the whatever. Elon Musk wants to have everyone talking about him on Twitter. These fascists doing the worst injustice will always want people to look not at self, but at them. Look at others. Look for not the logos, but look for their own pathologos belief. So in these two questions of what the self can function through, what the self can do, look at things and look for things, we have the nature of justice, look at the self, look for the logos, and the nature of injustice. Look at others and look for their pathologos. If I can tiptoe around the boss's pathologos, I can avoid getting fired. If I know what the teacher wants, teacher's really into Jesus, so I'm going to make my book report about how Lord of the Rings is about Jesus. Peter Thiel thinks everything is about the fucking Jesus and the Antichrist. Jordan Peterson, the same thing. So if I don't want Peter Thiel, the guy who has all the surveillance, the fucking disgusting surveillance and weaponry and stuff, if I don't want to be murdered by that trillionaire, I better look for his personal pathologos beliefs and make everything around he is the chosen one, he is Jesus. And everyone he doesn't like he literally said, Greta Thunberg, the young woman who's trying to get corporations to stop fucking destroying our planet and killing people, is the Antichrist because he doesn't like her. That's it. That's it. It's always those two things. Look at me and look for my bullshit beliefs. That's injustice. That's fascism. That's Trump, Netanyahu, Peter Thiel, Musk, all of them. Always and forever. On any planet you find yourself in, and any dimension you find yourself in, if the life has reached the level of capacity for language and self-reflection, the capacity to look at oneself, ousia, and the capacity to look for logos, language, if they're at that level of capacity but haven't yet recognized the nature of belief, you will be able to understand every dictator. We don't need another Trump and Netanyahu. We don't need another genocide. We don't need even an alien race. The blue aliens, if they have a believer in charge, they will do the same thing. The red aliens on the other dimension, or the bug people, if they've got language and reflection, or self-reflection capacity. So, injustice and justice, always looking at self for logos, justice or excellence, looking at others, dictator, for their personal pathologos, always the same. The great thing is, even got Kinder eggs, but not 12 of them. Oh, go back to the shop, please. Get, do you have a food delivery app? Get Uber Eats and order 11 more Kinder eggs for me. So always the same, isn't that neat? And we want to be just. So we can always look at the self, or look at the highest expressions of self, or look at oneself. Even when looking at others, if everything is self, look for the self and look for the logos. In other words, we can do this activity at all times. If we do, we're looking at the whole of self and looking for the logos of self, we can recognize deviations. Oh, I see your problem. You're not looking at yourself, you're looking at others. You're focused on images, gossip. You're listening to your parents still, or your preacher still, or Tom Cruise still. Looking at others and not self. Oh, I see your problem. You're looking for not the logos inherent to reality, you're looking for a projection of your own personal childhood pathologos beliefs. You're looking for your childhood beliefs. You're looking for your pathologos. That's it, just two things. Self and others, logos and pathologos. Which is interesting because the archetype of the dialectic is two things. The archetype of the dialectic that we use to direct our attention to what we look at and how we look for it is self and others. Self to self is definition. Self to others is demonstration. Others to others is division. And then that others you unify. to take back to the self, that's your conclusion. That's the dialectic. Those are the stages in reflection. So, self and others, the two things you can look at. Look for this, the logos, the structure of reason, or the pathologos beliefs you project from childhood. That's it. Isn't that fun? So therefore, Hercules would be a hero because he's looking at his self in his state of mind and looking for the logos in his feasting with their gods. That's his own self. But when he functions with others, he's directing them to look at their highest experience of self and look for the understanding of it, or the logos. Or he might ask them to look at the difference, look at their false image of the self, and look for the pathologos with reference to looking at the self and at the logos. So in other words, if you have justice and injustice, at self with logos, or for logos, or with logos, and you have injustice, the cause of problems, at others, with or looking for pathologos. Messy. Pathologos beliefs. And the just side is look at self. Look at self. Looking with the logos and the dialectic, and looking for the logos of self. Hey, make sense of your experience, because experiences are always temporary, even enlightenment experiences. But it's in the afterglow, you can put words on it, understanding you can take with you. And again, ideal relationships, the same thing. After the high experiences that you have, roll over and look at your baby and say, hey baby, let's put logos on that state of mind you're in.
Do a poggers.
And do a poggers. Look for logos, understanding. Self and logos, or others and pathologos. Now a hero is doing this in his state of mind, while either directing people to do this themselves, or to look at this with reference to this to realize that this is the cause of their problems. Your pathologos beliefs, and focused on others in the physical world. Whether it's other shapes and colors, whether it's dictators, whether it's preachers, whether it's your parents, or whether it's just physical senses themselves. Instead of looking at individual others in your physical senses, can you carry Xenophanes' question, what's the whole? What happens if you take foreground and background together in your vision, and you look at vision as a whole and not look at specific others? Can you do the same thing with hearing? What's the whole of hearing? The thoughts that come and go in your mind and imagination. Can you take the whole of thought without getting wrapped up in a particular other vision or sound or thought? That's Xenophanes' question. Xenophanes' question. And Xenophanes taught Parmenides, and Parmenides taught Socrates. So, and the Xenophanes is the earliest written philosophy that we have. from philosophy. Xenophanes. What we have from him is a snippet, which is, we've upgraded it over the years, but it's, his was, what is the whole of seeing and thinking? Seeing and hearing, but we can say, what is the whole of seeing? Well, he says it is the whole that is seeing and hearing. So we turn it into a question so we can make it better. Seeing and hearing and thinking. And when's it happening? Right now. You carry this question. Pierre would say, carry it with you for a week. Carry it, anything you do all day. See what happens if you carry this. Then try it all week. Then try it all month. It may have an effect of lessening the power of this, your pathologos. Because you're not looking at particular others, you're looking at the whole of it. You're not looking at particular beliefs that you get wrapped up in, because you're looking at all of thoughts as a whole. So, the dialectic itself is only self and others. You can look at self and others. This is the structure of the logos, its distortion is the pathologos. So you look at others for the pathologos, or look at the self, look for the logos. And our answer to the question, how can Hercules be in heaven and in Hades? His state of mind is with self and logos. And his functioning is in the physical world, asking people to get this or get this. The two things you can ask of people. In other words, looking at the self logos through the self logos. You can put the two together. If you can have the state of self, not as an emptiness nirvana thing like a Buddhist, but with understanding and wisdom in your back pocket, could we say the self logos? In which case we can say what we're looking at is the self logos. And we're looking, hey, this logos that we're using in the dialectic, these terms, are they all the reflected qualities of self? So can we say we're doing one thing, looking at self logos, with the self logos, for the self logos? Making our state of being the self logos, and our functioning through the self logos. In heaven and in Hades. Heaven and earth coming together. So, the soul's activity is in time and its existence is timeless or eternal. We could conclude that since it reverts upon itself in its activity, focusing on or looking at the self, not just the self, but putting words on it, so we can put the state, the clear, open, or profound state of self with the logos, so looking at the self logos. Reverts upon itself in its activity, and since it's recursive in respect to its existence, so the thing that we are doing while we look at it is also the self logos, it's self-constituted. This idea of being self-constituted means all its functions, self-logos, its mode of being, self-logos, and its power and activity, self-logos, are all within itself, the inherent self-logos. And it stands, while it stands independent of everything else. So while the self-logos is the activity, the power, our state of being, Hercules in heaven, our functioning through the self-logos to our friends, as they struggle to become a hero and leave Hades as well. While also we are outside of it. While our state of mind or being is self-logos eternally in heaven, our functioning is the self-logos in the physical world. The self transcends both, because there has to be a self that has the state of mind as a whole, or is asking the question, what is the whole of seeing, hearing, and thinking right now? And it has to be the self experiencing the activity in time. So there's a self logos that transcends. There's a self logos that transcends, a self logos as a whole, as a state of mind, and a self logos through parts in time on Earth, or mythologically we could say the shadows in Hades, the zombies that we face every day, the NPCs, which are just people struggling to go through this process and become heroes themselves, if they have the courage. So the self logos that is independent or transcends. We have the self logos as a whole. And of course we can use not just whole, but any of these words on this side of the self logos terms as the same, as you like yourself, as free, as at peace or rest, as outside of time, any of them on that side. So we'll just take the top one because that's the idea of scope. The highest term has scope over the others, which is important because the highest term is the self logos, which has scope over the other two dimensions, both cognitively, epistemology, and levels of reality, ontologically, to use some fancy terms to be fancy. Self logos as a whole, as a state of mind. State of mind. In these states of mind, it steps out of the state of mind or way of being, the state of mind. And what color? Purple. That purple too. We have the self logos. Self logos as functioning well, the soul experiences in time, steps soul's activity as function or activity. As dialectic, which is the art of the logos, the art of the self logos, the state of mind of the self logos. And so, and this is what we do. So we use the dialectic to get people to, again, either remove the differences through midwifery and dream analysis, or to reflect on the highest states to reach that, and then even beyond that to the self. That's what we focus on, this and this. That's what we focus with, the self logos, and that's the self that has the state of mind and does the activity itself. So it's self-constituted while also being independent and transcendent. That's the self that we're after, the self logos. So we started with the idea of this being, and this being the world of becoming, and this being the one self or the good self. But we can have a new term that we can introduce from this text, this self logos. So you can say this is the one self, because it's a one that transcends the oneness. It's the good self. It's a good that transcends the idea of the good or goodness itself in being. But we can also say it's the self-logos that is independent and transcends the logos or the intelligibility of reality, which is the hyparxis. The highest aspect of the brilliant light of being is its logos. So the logos can be in both. And of course, we won't reach even that state of being unless we are doing the dialectic, making the dialectic learning and the spiritual tradition, or the model for teaching and the Dharma. So it's the self-logos. So we want to say, hey, you're a scientist, or you like to learn about the world. You want to solve the world's problems. Great. So what's the cause of self-problems? I don't know. People with different beliefs? No. How about beliefs themselves as a principle? What do you mean? Let's look at the self-logos, the self-terms. None of these are physical, but it will help you understand the cause of all political problems. You want to put an end to political problems? Self-logos. Here it is. Whether it's this dictator or that dictator, whether it's this religion or that religion, whether it's that parental figure or this parental figure, it's always the self-logos that will allow you to understand the nature of human problems and understand the dialectic, which is the movement from either the disconnected dualists of the modern Democrats, the conflict of the fascists and the right-wingers, to what we need to do to solve problems, understanding. That's the logos, that's the dialectic. Not only can it turn back and solve the problems of these two jabronis, but it can, through reflecting on the logos itself, you can awaken yourself to know yourself as eternal. That's the whole, that's a state of being, but also realize that that even has to have an agent or a cause, asking the question, what is the whole of seeing, hearing, and thinking? So it's through the recognizing the intelligibility even of your highest experiences, or the logos, that you can come to know the self. Meaning, whether you want to master music or geometry or mathematics or science, eventually you will have to realize that what you are looking at and discovering is the intelligibility or the intelligible structure of that thing. It's the self-logos. So the self-logos is the end thing. Even to do math, you have to take some things or axioms for granted. 2 and 2 will always equal 4 as a principle. Justice always has to have equality as a principle. You can't have politicians who lie or contradict themselves as a principle. You can't reject principles as a principle, Democrats. You can't contradict the principles as a principle, Republicans. So you're led to see that there are principles and conditions for whatever it is you're interested in. That's the hyparxis of learning. Philomathesis, love of learning. The hyparxis is the top of one level and the bottom to that level. Now you're introduced to causes and principles, justice, beauty, goodness, truth. That's metaphysics. Telling stories about those things is mythology. Using the gods to represent them in mythology, that's theology. Taking it literally is stupid and makes you, in the book, a barbarian. Not fucking literal. That's stupid. Now, you can also go through stages of development of this. Hey, beauty. I experienced pure beauty. Hey, everything was perfectly ordered. It was just. Hey, it was infinite in all directions. Limitless. Hang on a second. All of these depths of experience can be understood, meaning there is an understandability to every single level, meaning the highest aspect even of being that has a scope over everything else that you can experience. Every level of enlightenment experience can be understood in some way. You can recognize that beauty and justice have to coexist. Hey, that beautiful girl, if she's a psychopath, is she beautiful anymore? Uh-oh. Hey, that just soul, does she radiate a beauty that transcends her physical hotness? I fucking think so. That's a higher level of beauty that transcends and confuses the plebes. Gets them to get angry about you. Because you're reflecting the self-logos in your beauty, in the justice and beauty of yourself and soul. Hang on a second. Not only is every level understandable, there are relationships. You can't have beauty without justice and goodness and whole and part and same and different. They are all together as aspects of a single thing that can be intellectually unpacked, meaning the highest intellectual distinction you can make is that intelligibility that allows for all of those connections and that order and that hierarchical, including the hierarchical development of enlightenment that you could map to the ox herding pictures, or we could even make our own model of various enlightenment states people can have, progressing to the highest. What's the highest? That which has the scope over everything. Once again, it's the self-logos. So as the self-logos was the hyparxis here, it happens to be the hyparxis here. So the highest aspect of being, allowing this to be known by the self intelligibly through the logos, is the self-logos. Meaning it's the doorway to the self. Meaning the self that we recognize is the self, but also contains an inherent understandability and inherent knowability, while itself being independent and transcending it, because it's the thing that has experience and knowledge. It's the thing that has activities and understanding, while being its cause at the same time. That's the independent, transcendent nature of the self as the self-logos. That's the goal. That's know thyself. Without this, any tradition is empty of meaning. That's why everything has to have know thyself as its premise. Every society, for it to be just, know thyself. Creating the conditions for this to do that. Every injustice is the pathologos, focused not on self but on others, looking for not the logos but my own personal beliefs about Jesus or Allah or fucking Nazi Hitler bullshit. It's always the same thing. Others and pathologos, or self and logos. Self-logos takes you all the way to the top, baby. Hooray.
Do a poggers.
So we do a poggers. It's the self-logos. All this from the book, by the way. What a good book. Book's a banger.
No one seems to be.
Imagine people changing their positions and it's better.
So we get from this book. So, let's read. So with that reflection, let's see if we can read the same thing again. By the way, it's always the self, only by going through this process of understanding as we look at what was there the whole time, the self-logos. It's the self-logos that brings into light the obvious and the simple. So let's demonstrate that by, after this reflection that we've just gone through here, can we go through the same paragraph again and see if it comes to light in a higher way? As a demonstration of the thing we defined. Dialectic, baby. In midwifery, philosophical midwifery, the activity of the dialectic to remove the false parts and beliefs and images. In philosophical midwifery, for a dream to be uniquely meaningful to each soul, it must have an image of the self that the dreamer identifies with. It must have a drama activity in motion and time that has an analog with a suspecting problem that the dreamer is facing in their everyday world. The solution to one's problem must be central to one's spiritual life. Oh my God. Removing the part different from the whole. Removing the... Removing the part different from the whole. Motion, drama, in time. That's midwifery. That's dream analysis. The source of the perfection, after we've purified the problem, of the soul lies in the discovery of its own higher reason for existing. This, not just to free, but to have excellence. This reason springs from the intelligence that it also is sharing in, for it reverts upon itself, logos, at the very moment that is open to a more profound state of mind. We're calling the self, logos, as the whole, as the state of mind, called the twilight of the experience of the intelligence. So there's many insights and high states you have in your physical world. It's the glow leading you to the thing as a whole. The very way it proceeds in this process of dialogue, self-logos dialectic, is the exercise of a cognitive faculty we call understanding. We love that. And it culminates in the openness that is the shadow of the openness and freedom of a clear and pure mind functioning. This philosophical way of proceeding highlights its very mode of existing, the self-logos, and in that turning, so this way of proceeding, we're going through the self-logos in the dialectic, in this reflection on our self-logos mode of state of mind or transcendent self. So this activity highlights the very thing that you are, and it's turning about on yourself. That's that recursive ousia movement. It reverts upon the intelligence. Thus, this way of understanding unites into a oneness in its activity and focus and goal, and in doing so, it returns to its natural source, the intelligence, the self-logos as a whole. As a result, before it was a scattered multiplicity, without coherence and integrity. It becomes a set of ideas linked together with an inner coherence that has, what's that set of linking ideas? The self-logos, terms and structure. That is linked together in an inner coherence that to grasp requires the intellect to put in play. Did we put into play the intellect in seeing the self-logos parts, its expressions to the cognitive faculties, bringing it together into a unity, self-contained with the self-logos at every level? Are we playing with the intellect? Are we having the best time?
There's only two options at the end of an argument.
Where's the more? It's a total shit show. I'm cute.
Okay. Go ahead.
He better not.
Okay, I didn't find a sound drop. Okay, let's keep reading. Okay. So we're engaging ousia, reverting upon the intelligence. So this way of understanding through the self-logos unites into a oneness, and in doing so, it returns to its natural source, the intelligence. As a result, what was before a scattered multiplicity without coherence and integrity becomes a set of ideas linked together with an inner coherence, we call the self-logos, that to grasp requires the intellect to be put into play. The moment of insight reveals its mode of existence. The self-logos has a higher and more profound mode of existence since it lacks any image of oneself. Those beliefs and images that we remove through dream analysis and midwifery. It's not there in a higher sense of the self-logos. We can say that it ushers in a dawning realization that the soul is not subject to time. Yet these kinds of experiences prepare the mind for a more penetrating insight into our mode of existence, self-logo, into its more profound way of functioning. Mode of existence, self-logos, state of mind, functioning, self-logos to the dialectic. And that has a power capable of reaching to what is most divine. Yes, the self-logos is even the hyperaxis of the divine, the most divine. This activity of soul, self-logos dialectic, experiences it in time, but the state of mind of the self-logos as a whole steps out of that temporal passing phase of being and enters into the timelessness of reality. Wow. So this is why it can be said that the soul's activity is in time, self-logos dialectic, and its existence is timeless or eternal, self-logos state of being, mind. We could conclude that it reverts upon itself in this activity, since it is also recursive in respect to its existence and activity. It's self-constituted. This idea of being self-constituted means all its functions, its mode of being, and its power and activity are all within itself. So all of those things, the state of mind, the being, the functioning power activity, the functioning activity, the state of mind or the state of being, those two things are all within itself. So self-constituted, therefore the self-logos itself stands independent of anything else. The thing having the state of being or state of mind and causing it and having the activity of functioning contains both within it, making them both not just self-referential but self-contained, meaning it has to, as the experiencer and container, be outside or independent and transcendent of it necessarily, because its cause can't be diminished in the experiences or activities, so it has to have a eternal power beyond even eternity and functioning. In other words, the mode of being of the self-logos, state of mind, our activity and functioning through the self-logos dialectic is all contained within something experienced by something and caused by something, the self-logos itself, the logo self. That's independent and transcendent. That's you, my friend. That's you. That's you as yourself, as your hero self. And if you wanted to represent that, and remember that and tell your friends about that as a story, as a mnemonic device, personify that as a character, you might create a story of a hero who has reached their goal, can be with the gods in heaven while also functioning with the shadows in Hades. In other words, the self-logos that you are, that transcends while has this and this as a state of mind and functioning, while also knowing the self as a clear, pure, intelligible logos, self-logos. You could have a hero that represents that. That might be our friend. Homer offers a prize if we could answer why the greatest hero, Hercules, could be at the same time both in the house of Hades and feasting with the gods in heaven. There's our answer to Homer. What's our prize? This. Understanding of the self and the highest excellence or justice as mind and functioning while itself transcending both might be the prize. What's the prize? Self-logos. Is that what Hercules is? Is that why he's the greatest hero? Is that you? Is that your goal? Is that your purpose? Is that where we're heading? If so, the question for tomorrow is, how does the ideal woman, Penelope, play into this model and this idea represented with Hercules? On that cliffhanger, we talked about the ideal hero, and which would be the model of justice and therefore the ideal man. Next time, let's talk about the ideal woman. Hooray. Wow, we did a lot, saw a lot, and I hope you've gained a prize from this reflection if you've been on this journey with me. If you have, thank you so much for joining me. Once again, you can follow along on Twitch or YouTube. You can join the Discord and you can share your work and insights and puzzles and maybe meet other people with the desire to master this art of the dialectic themselves, to become Hercules themselves.
You're a wizard,
You're a wizard, Harry, because we're all
I'm looking for someone to share in an adventure.
for someone to share in this adventure with. It's not a solo quest. So you can do that on the Discord. And of course, you can find a PDF to the text we're reading below. And if you want to support the channel, I do very much appreciate anything that you can contribute. It's a great help to me right now. Thank you so much. And there's a link to donate below. Later, hero of the Twitch game. I will see you later, Reeve, or as we like to call him, Hercules of Twitch chat.
Here we go.
Hey, whoa. He better not.
He better. So, thank you, the most heroic Twitch chatters, and I'll see you in the next. I'll see you. Wait, god damn it. I'll see you in the next one.